Okay, we are live October the 18th, 2024. This is One-Eyed Jack and the Shells. Now the Murder Hornets. A Death to the Ball, Requiem in E minor. I'll put a link in the chat. I uploaded and premiered the IPS Deep Think Tank, episode number 3, thanks to Armin Ree for the processing of the file and then adding a thumbnail, which I'll update tonight. Very good work there. And we're likely going to be recording the next one tomorrow, like we did last Saturday. So after Infinite Plane Saturday, stick around, jump in the Discord server, and we'll do some kind of a group chat. Let's Go says Coriolis is a bunch of bull. Ted Stryker says, hello, good show earlier. Yeah, that's the one. And then I premiered from something else. We've been behind, so I archived from the 16th. All right, Let's Go, Armin Ree, Matt X, Frank Murr, Copaesthetic, Auto Hoaxer. Let's go ahead and get started. Phones are open. I want to play this clip. Here is Elon Musk responding to Tucker Carlson about the hoax, or rather, the Apollo 11 moon landing and the subsequent landings. Were they real? So here is what Pope Elon had to say.
We definitely went to the moon. Yes, we went to the moon. We went to the moon several times. I know in depth the technical designs of the rockets, the spacecraft, everything.
Yes.
What went right, what went wrong. It was a remarkable piece of technology, like incredible piece of technology
I like how Tucker just agrees automatically with everything every one of his guests says. It can be Ye, it could be Musk, it could be anybody. And anything they say, he just automatically agrees, just nods his head. It's the least critical person in the world. But his resting, baffled face makes it look like he's really thinking. But he's just auto-agreeing. You'll notice this.
Piece of technology, like incredible piece of technology to go to the moon in '69. That was like reaching into the future and pulling the future forward dramatically. And it was an important ideological battle with communism because they couldn't put a person on the moon and capitalism could.
So that's the main thing. Capitalism, we had to demonstrate capitalism can beat the commies. And so we tricked the Russians, whether we faked it or we beat them in the space race. But we definitely went to the moon, according to Elon Musk. And according to my analysis, he definitely put a CGI mouse on the outside of his rocket, the CRS-19, back in December of 2019, on the mission where they were sending genetically modified mice, like Mighty Mouse was going to the space station, and there happened to be a mouse on the outside of the rocket. And it was obviously a CGI joke. It's undeniable it was there. We called it Mousegate. And it was interesting to watch how people responded to it. The denialism was palpable. Oh, that's a video compression artifact. Oh, it's space ice. Okay, let's say it is ice on a rocket going Mach 8. It is shaped like a mouse. And there's mice on board. So at a minimum, it's a cool coincidence, but they wouldn't even acknowledge that. Joined by Kawas Leo Pirate says inner space or outer space. Yeah, inner space, outer space, cyberspace, the commons that they control. We'll be talking about that. Frugal Snowbird, Esteban Clump says Elvis was primed for years as crazy, nice move, Tavistock. Elvis lives, says Clump. Elvis was in that movie Megalopolis at the Saturnalia party, singing Donald Trump's inauguration song while wrapped in the American flag, singing America the Beautiful. Surreal. Oh, the clip was too low. Yeah, it's as loud as I could get it, unfortunately. But what he was basically saying is, yeah, of course we went to the moon. We definitely went. He says he knows every piece of technology that went into it. Anyway, no question in his mind. Do we have any moon landing believers here? Like, I'm not thinking or suggesting right now that the moon is some kind of hologram. I like this idea of vibes of cosmos, this projection thing, but there are too many things to explain. But I'm not settled on it. The best evidence we have was given to the government of Holland by 3 astronauts who went there. Moon rocks. And the moon rocks are made of petrified wood. So what is your take on that? Is the moon made of wood? Clump says Elvis tied in with crazy conspiracy. Yeah, from the very beginning, he's one of the first ones who, in all the tabloids, the Elvis sightings, it's been a mainstay of conspiracy. Well, not really conspiracy theory, but more like crazy stories they throw out there to make people look crazy. Okay, someone sent me a couple of very interesting links yesterday. Let me start with this one. Right before, well, this is being aired up until 9/11, and this is not a scene from 9/11. This is an AT&T commercial. You see that person falling from the Twin Towers? This is AT&T streamlining business featuring the WTC 1996. So if you look at this ad, it has a pole vaulter, and it's strangely reminiscent of the Twin Towers on 9/11.
And leave old inefficient ways of doing business behind. With new ways to find and share information, AT&T can streamline the way you do business, so there's no limit to what you can do.
He has a mat that he falls upon, but the imagery is striking. I think it's definitely connected, certainly predictive programming, and the AT&T connection is also something that we could probably analyze. There's some symbolism in that one as well. Okay, moving on here. Someone also sent me a link to this. Here it is. Keisha, this is from 2012. Keisha's Die Young pulled from U.S. radio after Newton massacre. The song's title was deemed too upsetting in the wake of the shooting. We talked about this in the IPS Deep Think Tank episode 3, and I think the points we raised here is that this is how they reach everybody with the PSYOPs. You have it transmitted through someone who targets that demographic. So it's impossible to not reach the bad news. It finds its way to you. But yes, her single was pulled from the stations because of its title. It had been number 3 in the charts. Now what is this? Predictive programming, concurrent programming, propaganda, all of the above, which is kind of what I think. I think it's a mix. It has the function, I think, of reaching target demographics. But that's just one example. We have many examples of Netflix and HBO changing the titles of episodes and making changes or putting warning labels because they so closely resemble recent events. Isabel Ann says, can I have my wrench? Yes, I'll go ahead and go through the comments. So if you comment, you will be wrenched. Yes, Clump, Muhammad Atta. Another 1.5 hour drive. Yeah, you'll definitely, and you can call in, anybody can call in, but we will be here for the next couple of hours. Keisha asks for her fans' teeth to make jewelry. All right. Nothing culty about that. Okay, I have a lot of things to go over. I wanted to start off with reading some comments that people have left on the main YouTube channel. So let's just go through these one by one. First one, Infinite Muse says, only able to catch IPR replays. The MSM is the Ministry of Truth. People are catching on, almost as if it's written to be that way. I agree it will flip, and then we'll see what's next from the perspective of our individual reality tunnels. Does anybody think or agree with this, that people are waking up? Because I'm not a pessimist, but I don't see how that could possibly happen. I have zero hope of that happening. I think the only salvageables, because it has to do with, do you even care? And what percentage of the population truly care? You know, we had this conversation in the Discord server today. Someone was like, well, what if the Earth isn't what NASA says? Like, what difference does it make? And that's, I think, symptomatic of the apathy they promote, where you're not really given any examples of the alternatives. Like, science fiction is very blinkered. It's all tied into this dominant paradigm. So I can understand why people are incurious to some degree. Okay, next one. Going through more of these comments. Austin 7082 says, have you considered the possibility the obvious programming in media and bad space CGI and NASA fakery is on purpose to let those with eyes to see, or is it your belief that it's mockery for mockery's sake? I don't think I can believe the latter, because without the predictive programming, IPS would have less to think tank about. Okay, I see what you're saying. No, I don't think it's merely mockery. I don't think it's there to mock the people who can see. That's kind of a synchromystic take. that it's planted there, they want us to know, or there's some kind of intentional awakening process. No, I think it's as simple as it's advertising. The power elite are heavily invested in writing history. In advance they have, and they implement it in the form of news. The news-bent reality, where they can selectively replace real news with a pre-scripted psychological operation, a PR stunt. And so the objective of predictive programming is to help pave the way to the public accepting what is presented on the world stage later. And it's more like advertising and propaganda than anything else. So it's not mockery. It's not karma. It's not revelation of the method. That's all mysticism. It's as simple as it's advertising. Spirit Jordak says the Tropicana Casino being demolished at the same time in Florida as the Tropicana Field has damage to the dome, head reference, speaks of the Orange Man going down via injury to his dome. That's really good. That's Spirit Jordak 587. That's really good. We were talking about the significance of orange. Tony Soprano, season 1, episode 12, is holding a glass of orange juice, and they shoot and they clip his ear, and I think it shoots his glass of orange juice. And then you have oranges associated with the attempted assassination of Vidi Corleone in The Godfather, and later he has the orange peel in his mouth when he's poisoned. And then you have, of course, Trump, the Orange Man, and this is the reference, of course, to his orange face paint, which sometimes rubs off on the cheek of Laura Loomer. Okay, next comments. Okay, I clipped the name here. Someone came up with an anagram for not walking back, which is a Democrat hashtag. Not walking back. Let's see what we have here. Banal, Bong, Kamala steals election. Oh, he's predicting Kamala will steal the election and Trump will fight for it and wins via civil war. Okay, interesting breakdown. I'll look at that closer a little bit later here. Girl says here, don't worry, it's all a simulation, especially the shots, fluoride, glyphosate, chemical food additives. Not to worry, none of it's real, it's all a simulation, especially the experiments in bioengineering, nanotech, and geoengineering. Okay, geoengineering is a hoax. I'm sorry to tell you that. She also goes on to say, engineered contrails may be camouflage, disguise, or conceal chemtrails. Ask the residents of Belgrade, whom NATO subjected to months of continuous cloud cover in order to more precisely surveil bombing targets. Yeah, I had a note about this today. Here it is. If chemtrails were real, environmentalists would care. They would protest. They wouldn't be relying on images of stock images of polar bears and floating on little chunks of ice. Like they would have I think more compelling arguments for man ruining the earth if they could point to chemtrails. But the only people who care about chemtrails are conspiracy theorists on the right wing. And just to be clear, I consider climate change to be a conspiracy theory as well. But I say there's no difference between chemtrail alarmism and Gretaism. So what I read here is basically, how dare you? And I also want to remark that if you're not wearing a mask, then you don't really care. Like, you're not really worried about it. It's just, at this point, it's almost a LARP. It's a truth or orthodoxy, skyphobia. I think I've had enough of it. I think we all have. And also, one more point. There will always be climate change on the world stage. And there will always be chemtrails over Trutherville. We don't have them out here. Yeah, JG5, comment for revenge, you get one. Donna South says no one's waking up. Yeah, anybody being put through the awakening, the red pills, or wokesterism, are just led into a subset of the mainstream. So they go deeper into programming. They go into the nightmare. So the blue pill's a dream, red pill's a nightmare, neither is awake. Otto Hoaxer says no hope. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not convinced that this isn't at some level benevolent. I mean, we don't know. I need more information. Maybe this is the best of all possible worlds. Matt X says, reading comments from YouTube and Facebook, I would say people are waking up to the fakery. You're right about that in a sense. You're right. But the issue with this is that you can have someone like Candace Owen or Laura Loomer point out predictive programming, point out obvious fakery, but they're spewing it into the sea of irrelevance where none of it matters. Context matters. And until people can perceive the world stage as an internalized consensus, agreed upon model that has been tampered with, as long as they treat the news media as presenting basic facts, not including the idea that we talk about here all the time, that the psyops give them total creative control over fake news and therefore history. If you don't have that perspective, then these puzzle pieces don't go anywhere. That's why we have to quarantine. We have to, and this is why I hit these issues that I know will trigger people. Because if you're a skyphobic, you're not a skeptic. It means you fall for one of several logical fallacies. And at this point, you should recognize that the world stage, it's run like a carnival, and we're all marks. And if you fall for a loaded question and you get triggered over a fake issue, that's really on you at this point. But what are they spraying is a loaded question. There's an appeal to motive fallacy, appeals to ignorance. Like at this point, we can go ahead and drop it. Elephant Tusk says, most of the Florida orange crop washed away by Hurricane Milton, squeezing industry at the height of harvest. P. Trooper says, yo, and hey, let me open phones too. And if you can't call, you can also access by Discord. I'll open up Discord. Mango says, I watched the Something of Brazil the other night from 78. Oh, okay. The series The Boys. They were cloning Hitler from his genetic makeup, and they had planned on killing all the guys that fathered them within 2 years. Fascinating. So the series The Boys has, I haven't watched it, but it obviously has predictive and concurrent programming in it because episode 8 of season 4, Assassination Run, had to be retitled. And that's the one where the Homelander, who represents Trump, who was compared to Trump before this event, is there at the site of an assassination. He has blood on his face. And so you have Trump with blood on his face. You have the Homelander with blood on his face. And they say, we have to change the season finale's title. And we've seen this many times. So this thing we're pointing out with Keisha and her song Die Young, not new. Speaking of Die Young, there's the Roddy Ricch song Die Young, which has a Die Young curse attached to it. If you are not familiar with it, it's kind of analogous to the 27 Club in some ways, but it just has to do with a number of artists who died not long after playing the song on their Snapchats. And then in the video for Die Young, at 1 minute 33 seconds, Roddy Ricch is looking at an image of Nipsey Hussle, and he's standing in a cemetery. And he says something about not wanting to die young. And then, of course, 133 is the reverse of 331, Nipsey's death date. The whole thing was intriguing, the level of predictive programming around that particular hoaxed death. But that was tied into one of these curses. So let's get into the title tonight. I think I called the live stream Junk in Outer Space, Cyberspace, and Inner Space. And all this ties into Musk, and there's a story that just came out that really encapsulates what I've been talking about for some time. SpaceX sues California regulators alleging anti-Musk bias in rocket rejection. So they rejected his rockets. He wanted to do some more, I guess, set up some more launching pads or something, and they stopped him. But it's because of his online shit posting on X. But there's a meaning here to this. It ties into the idea that he's the richest man in the world. He buys the commons that we call Twitter, and he has flooded it with what they consider to be mind junk, thought crimes, mind viruses. At the same time, he is putting his satellites in space, and he is one of the lead contributors to the growing problem of space junk. And many times there have been articles where people have complained about his space junk landing in various places, starting fires, etc. So it's not new. But there's a correlation between mind junk and space junk, because space junk would be occupying low Earth orbit, our commons, our global commons, and we can't let the richest man in the world screw it up for everybody. Because if one piece of space junk hits a satellite, hits something else, you have the Kessler syndrome, where it becomes like an avalanche. It becomes a no-go zone. We're stuck. So we can't have that. So that's a private citizen on the right wing, a capitalist praising capitalism who is ruining low Earth orbit. Similarly, he is being blamed for essentially releasing the kraken of far-right extremism onto X, precipitating hate crimes. Remember the 33 bomb hoaxes called into Springfield, all blamed on Musk, and he highlighted these stories. So you can see the commons is of the cyberspace, which directly connects to our inner space. And ultimately, this mass mind control apparatus is here. We're talking about media at large, including and especially including the space program. Its purpose is controlling your worldview, which is your mind, your inner space. So how do they access your inner space? Well, of course, our shared commons, cyberspace, and the realm of ideas, which they're attempting to curate. But this correlation between outer space and cyberspace, it all ties into the concept of worldview. And that's why he's significant in this picture, because he's part of the space papacy. And if you look, the space program's primary job, I think, and it's been accomplished, has been to establish a worldview that puts all mankind on a single slate, and we're all on the same page now. Also, the meaning to Stanley Kubrick's Monolith, and why it's not insignificant that he did Apollo 11. Let me catch up on your comments. R. Cook says space is junk science. Well, it's mostly science fiction. It's just a movie. Leo Private says, in the last deep think tank discussion, you mentioned how numbers are a component of programming. I agree, but don't fully understand it. Yeah, what I was referring to was how immediately after Trump had his ear pierced by an AR-15, like right after, a lot of people on that day went to the Breaking Bad episode where the character has his ear shot. And I thought, that's strange. That was from 2008. And then 15 years later, it's recalled, like nearly instantly. And a number of people did this. And it made me think about how even these scenes, even if it's just one shot in a movie, a few seconds, it's there. You may never think of it again, but it's there to be tapped into, to be recalled later. And I'm not sure how it all works as far as the entrainment process, but I think it's mostly a matter of repetition. But my contention here, and this explains predictive programming 100%. No need to include supercomputers or the universe or any higher power. What explains predictive programming and all the eerie coincidences is simple. It is a deliberate entrainment of our minds through the synchronization of entertainment and news. And the news that they're preparing us for are specifically and only the fake news events. Those events that will go down in the history books, the turning points, the plot twists, the big psyops. And by faking these events, by faking the news, they are quite literally faking history. So we are living in a history that they're making. And there was a line in Fly Me to the Moon, Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum, where they said, we're making history. Woody Harrelson said it. Woody Harrelson said, we're making history. And he was part of the secret department above Nixon that was involved in their moon landing fakery. Woody Harrelson's dad, by the way, killed a judge and was believed to be close to the JFK assassination, possibly even one of the shooters. So another interesting connection here that connects the fake moon landing to the JFK assassination, both directed by Kubrick. And Kubrick was referenced 2 times in Fly Me to the Moon. Now let's move on. There was something else. Okay, so Channing Tatum, who was in Fly Me to the Moon, told flat earthers that they were, I think he just said, F yourselves. Like he was pretty blunt about it. But Donald Trump also had words for flat earthers. Let me see if I have this link. Yes. Donald Trump called flat earthers dumb. And there are many in his base. Now, to be clear, I'm not a flat earther. I put flat earthers in the same category as globe earthers. They've prematurely accepted a model. I'm kind of agnostic about it at this point, with very good reason. This isn't some knee-jerk contrarian position, but I don't believe cartoons, and I can see so many incentives for presenting us with a false worldview. So let's listen to what Trump says about flat Earth.
Oh, through the View, I know them. So Whoopi's a filthy, filthy mouth on her. I've hired Whoopi over the years, at hotels that I own. We hired her once, and I went. She was so filthy, disgusting, dirty with her mouth that the whole group left. There was nobody watching her. She was a comedian, and you know what? Nobody knows this. She said, "I admire you so much. Would you do me a favor, what? Would you do a cameo in a movie I'm making?" I did a cameo.
Okay, so he's talking about Whoopi Goldberg here. I'm waiting for the next part. He talks about Joy Behar and says she believes the earth is flat.
She thought the world was flat. You saw that, right? She thought the world... Joy is, she thought the world was flat. You saw that, right? Joy is dumb. The other one worked for me. She wrote a letter.
No, he said Joy's dumb. He didn't say flat earthers are dumb. But to be clear, though, the question isn't dumb. You're supposed to be able to ask questions, but just asking questions isn't enough. And if somebody offers you a ticket to Antarctica to view a 24-hour sun and you don't go, it's questionable. What does infinite plane mean? Well, the Flat Earth Society was organized around the idea that they figured it out, that the Earth is a pizza that vertically accelerates 32 feet per second and has like a dome over it. And that's absurd. It doesn't eliminate outer space. It's obviously a joke, and it has an edge where you could fall off. But it doesn't eliminate the presumption of outer space as described by the space agencies and as people popularly understand it. So we always looked at the Flat Earth Society as controlled opposition, or at least a dead end. So we just kind of did IPS, Infinite Plane Society, to just suggest that no, you can challenge the model from an agnostic perspective without jumping into something equally ridiculous. If you think that the globe model is not supported by enough facts, I mean, if you're not convinced by the video, if you think that they're deceiving you in any way, do you therefore have to adopt the ridiculous flying pizza thing? And no, you don't. However, we don't have enough information. And so how do you artificially decide where it ends? Does it end where your dome hits the ground? How do you decide where it stops? The Bible says, to me, that's not a reason. How do you know where it stops? Ice wall? That's a fantasy. The idea that you can't go to Antarctica is also kind of made up. It's a bad excuse. But I'm just saying, we don't know. So infinite until proven otherwise. I would ask you, how big is the universe? They say it's infinitely expanding. And to be fair, too, the solar system, and most people who mock the flat earth question haven't really thought about the question and who we're questioning. It's not about the shape of the world. It's about worldview and how you get it. And then, of course, the difference between knowing and trusting something on faith. So I would argue that the worldview we have is essentially a religion, Gnostology. And by religion, it's a worldview. It's based on faith and trust in a priesthood. And the priesthood of scientism fit that. Your astronauts are your high priests who have gone high enough to see the face of God. And they can verify for you that if you don't change your behavior, this thing's going to overheat. But I don't have any reason to say I know it's going to end at this point. So I'm saying it's infinite until proven otherwise. And if it is a ball, it's still, we would have to, like I'm saying, we'd have to get evidence outside of the stuff that we find to be so ridiculous. I'm going to be the first one to admit it and figure out, well, but here's the thing. Let's say they go down to Antarctica and they record a 24/7 sun. What does that really mean? Well, if it means that the Earth is a spinning ball, does it mean that we have to suddenly believe that the ISS footage is anything other than CGI? So there's a cover-up regardless. There's a cover-up whether it's a ball or not. So it's not even a question to me. Shape, that's not the most important question. It's worldview. And we can't trust the worldview given to us by the newsbenders. They fake the news on the ground. They fake the news above. That's enough for me to say, I don't trust them. And how hard is it to provide compelling evidence if you're not lying? And in our defense, 2 times in the last month, Elon Musk has said about his own missions, it looks like CGI, but it's not. So if Elon Musk says it looks like CGI, it looks like CGI. You have to agree. So we're right. It does. The question is it? And if it is, what does it mean? It doesn't therefore mean Earth is flat. Certainly not. It means that they're lying, hiding land, hiding resources, or something else. But as far as the infinite plane designation and name, yeah, it was meant to be the opposite of the controlled opposition. Infinite till proven otherwise. It's not an assertion. Although, to be accurate, let's say that we're wrong and the Earth is a spinning ball 25K circumference. Eventually, it's going to be destroyed by a planet-killing asteroid, probably in 2029. Apophis 99942 is supposed to hit us on Friday the 13th in April. So that's in 2029. We're all going to die. The planet explodes. And then what? Well, now we're in the flat solar system. And ask most people who believe in the ball Earth what shape the solar system is, and they'll think it's a sphere. They think the universe is a sphere. No, it's a conservation of angular momentum. It's flat like a pizza. So the Earth gets destroyed, and then what? Where are we now? Well, we're in the universe. What shape is the universe? It's flat. So we're all flat universes by default. So they say, what's at the edge of the Earth? Well, what's at the edge of the universe? We're asking the same question. The difference is what's at the edge of the universe is like a question that's been put way into the future. It's beyond our ability to answer it, out of sight, out of mind. And I'm saying, no, we're asking the same question, but you've prematurely arrived at a conclusion. The conclusion you've arrived at is wrong, and it limits your curiosity, and it stops you from questioning. But it's not like we don't have a point, because Elon Musk agrees it looks fake, it looks like CGI. That's enough. Okay, let's continue. Anybody in the mood for a little bit of cringe-ertainment? This is a group of MAGAs, and it's not MAGA rap. I was looking for MAGA rap, but I got something else here. This is a MAGA parody of YMCA, but changed to ACLU, and it's one of the cringiest things I've seen in a very, very long time. In fact, it's horrible and bad and hard to watch. I'm just going to play like 10 seconds or less. That's a laugh track. That's not a real studio audience.
Rights, it's what we enjoy. We'll sue every girl. We'll sue every boy.
All right, there you go. Pretty bad. All right, moving on. Now, this is a good comment. So we were talking about this flat Earth question, and someone in our chat had an interesting point he raised. He said, this was Anunnaki Nibiru 33. He said, just like it seems like the anti-vax, pro-vax debate, why would it matter anyway? How does it change your life one way or the other? It appears both spherical and flat to me. So why does flat matter? Why does flat matter? And here's why. I wrote, if it's flat, then there's a massive conspiracy to lie to all mankind and constrict them to a geographical area, falsely represented as the whole thing. Two, if there's more land to it, then of course the concepts of scarcity, their climate models all need to be kind of questioned. It means that climate change wouldn't really be a thing. Additionally, we would easily be able to discern who is part of the conspiracy. Who knows? Who are the people who are involved in the fakery? It'd be so easy to discern and then get real answers. Like what's behind it. The guilty parties would be obvious, but it has implications about history. So it's not really about shape, it's about worldview and the fact that we've been put into a global doomsday cult, but they have total paradigm control if this is indeed the case. And I think it has the potential of exposing the global nature, the monolithic and global nature of media. How it all agrees on certain points, on certain key points. Psyopsical said, the people would also assemble so fast to try and leave this place to flee taxes at the least. Exactly. It would be a gold rush. Maybe it already is. I mean, look how many billionaires are talking about mining space, becoming trillionaires by mining outer space. So there's a reason. Maybe they're just ripping you off in every way imaginable. And now they're going to bring in tons and tons, like trillions of dollars worth of nickel and platinum or whatever from asteroids. And they're going to say, yeah, it came from an asteroid, but it really came from deep, deep, deep south. All right. Dirk Zink says, whatever the moron liar Elong, I call him Ob Dong. I trust the opposite of what he says. Well, yeah, he's an actor. He's a character. He's a character, a composite character. Oh, we have a new feature I want to bring up. IPS is now TikTokable. So I'm trying to improve a few things. Last night I was not live because I was working on this. Twitch is now connected to TikTok, which means you can find any clip from tonight or any night's live streams. And once you mark a clip, I can go ahead and export it to TikTok. It doesn't take any time on my end, no work, and it's just a way to proliferate our ideas and get into this other area. So I have lots of videos up here so far. I just posted it, and I'll keep you updated, but it looks like it's getting traffic. So we'll see what happens. I have 0 subs, maybe like 3. So it's tiktok.com/Infinite Plane Society. It's a brand new channel. I tried TikTok once, and I nearly lost it with all those people wagging their fingers around and standing in the way of what they're describing. Elephant Tusk says you need a polo shirt with the IPS logo. Yeah, you know what? I have a few. I should start wearing them, but I just wanted to wait until they're available in the store first. Okay, so again, another thing too. So if anything, if you have a call, you call in and you want the video from that call, just take a clip from Twitch. So I put that out in the newsletter so everyone can access that. Okay, let's move on. I have a lot of notes to go through, and phones are open. I want to get through the rest of these comments. So we went over this one. So no, chemtrails are fake, and you can relax. A few more comments and questions. There was somebody had mentioned, I'll get to it later. I guess they want me to address a video made by another content creator, and I haven't had a chance to watch it. Okay, here we go. Rocco Calzone says, right on, Tim, no sacred cows. Bruckbank says, they put chemicals in the air, food, and water, in my opinion. Yeah, if we're going to assert this, though, I think you have to define chemicals. I think we have to be specific, because it's very easy to take the names, the unpronounceable, multisyllabic names of chemicals, and then make it look like it's a poison. And I don't believe that we're in the process of a depopulation. That's also a hoax. So if you're worried about depopulation, yeah, it's a hoax. Digipic says, volume is perfect. I had to turn it down for the first time. Keep up the great work. You're the best. Okay, great. Well, thanks to everyone in here, of course, for being persistent about it. And I finally got a solution. Crowdsourcing intel. Salty says, I'm hearing impaired and haven't been able to listen in months. Thank you for having fixed it. Yeah, this is the new standard. The audio will be this loud from now on. Magcent says, you may be smart, IPS, but I question your motives for attacking other truthers in the way that you do. Why are chemtrail believers targeted for your narcissistic gaslighting? The MSM... Well, first of all, let me say this. The definition of gaslighting refers to telling people that what they see is not what they see. And this is where it gets into the area of, well, we're both looking at the same phenomenon. Who's misrepresenting it? Who has the better explanation? And so it's really about facts. And the gaslighter is telling you to ignore facts and believe what they say. And I would argue that truthers are guilty of that because they're leaning on what they say and peer pressure, and they're not reaching into the facts because there really aren't any. I have not yet heard one of my chemtrail friends bring up the Appleman chart to debunk it. He says the MSM girl has legitimate fears that many share, and your response is to ridicule and attack. Yeah, skyphobia is ridiculous. It's as bad as Gretaism. Where did you learn that MO? It's concerning that you are a cold, selective influencer. Okay, so I'm being chastised by a believer, which is normal. You know, I'm basically blaspheming. I don't believe in their superstition here. Chemtrails don't exist, and that's good news. If you really believed it, you would be wearing a mask. You would sue the airlines. So you don't really believe it. And that's really on you. Like, maybe you do believe it, and that the chemtrails are real, and it has some kind of maybe a sedative effect, like it turns you apathetic. Like maybe chemtrails make you apathetic, which is ironic because the people who are agitated and notice it can't act on it. But if you don't have a mask, I don't think you really care. Chemtrailers lost the debate a long time ago. And that's a good thing. It really is. You can breathe comfortably, safe. You don't have to be worried. You don't have to be stressed, because you will die of chemtrail lung if you believe in chemtrails enough. It's called the placebo effect, and I don't want you to die of chemtrail lung. Okay, let's see. MAGA ban. No, we'll talk about that later. I got into a debate about the flat earth on Twitter. And we were talking, okay, here's kind of where we ended up. And just to make it clear, because I think it's premature for a model if you can't trust the sources. And it's okay to suspend judgment. So here is what he said. His name was Enjoy Your Day. He said, no flat earther will ever get more information. In fact, all they're doing is avoiding it at all costs, even rejecting free trips to fly over Antarctica. And they have a point. When it comes to extraordinary claims, the claimant has to provide the evidence. And yes, you could say that NASA provides some pretty extraordinary claims, but at the same time, there's been enough, I think, conjecture and debate, and at this point we know that no one's going to try to debunk their own model. So it's on you to do it. And the flat earthers who have presupposed that they live on a pizza with a dome, they're kind of in the wrong for having accepted a model without first testing it and then being afraid to test it. Travis McLeod says, chemtrails make McDonald's good for you. Yeah, I think there's life extension in the Big Macs. You think they want to kill you? Then you don't buy. They can't make any money off you if you die. McDonald's has every incentive to put life extension in the Big Macs. And I have truthers telling me they put baby meat in the burritos. And it's disturbing, because if it's true, it's disturbing. If it's not true, it's disturbing that the person would say that and they won't go protest. You know, you have the people who, they believe in the chemtrail fantasy, but they don't wear masks. Well, now you have people who believe in baby burritos and they don't protest their local McDonald's. If I thought my McDonald's was serving human flesh, I would warn people. And so who are these people online who claim to believe things and yet do nothing about it? Flatlander Montgomery proposes here what might be some medical misinformation. If you eat preservatives, you'll be preserved. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, I don't think it works that way. But I do think that there is no depopulation agenda to worry about. I'm not an alarmist. And if that alarms you, you're kind of in the wrong place. You should be making signs that say doom and gloom. Shannon Jones says, I never thought of it that way. Excellent McDonald's assessment. Yeah, I'm not advocating for any fast food restaurant. And don't listen to me for health advice or even salvation. You know, there are some people who have to pepper their news analysis with religion. And I try to, I'm staying out of religion and I'm staying out of identity politics. We're doing a fact-oriented breakdown of the fake history machine, the news benders, and how they are, in a very predictable way, now that we're watching it, moving all of mankind through non-stop 24/7 PR stunts that are unavoidable because we live in a massive global echo chamber or open asylum. Okay, so here is another comment from Enjoy Your Day. This is the debate I had on Twitter, just a few notable posts. He said, it's not literally about the shape of the earth until a flat earther comes up with calculations for a model that cannot be taken seriously. Are they all bad at math or not smart? What's the deal? This idea that flat earthers are all dumb, like Channing Tatum or Trump might say, it's kind of inaccurate because everybody starts off as a globe earther. So you aren't really like starting off not understanding that. It's actually, no, they understand this and then they cease to agree with it. But it's kind of a mischaracterization. But by and large, the people who've looked at the topic that I talked to today, who've spent any time looking at it, arrive at media skepticism and some level of shape agnosticism. That's about it. Not a lot of definitive answers. It's like you have a false explanation, you get rid of it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have something better. Thus, suspension of judgment. But okay, here's what he said. What's the big deal? And I said the deal is special effects are used in space propaganda to present a cosmography. The ISS is fake, and this has implications far beyond the flat versus round debates. You globe defenders ignore media fakery at large. You're just more opinionated, not more informed. So key point here. The people arguing in defense of NASA ignore media fakery. You're not going to find people who have looked at the moon landing critically, who trust the news media. And yet the people who defend the moon landing and the globe as a career choice, and there's a lot of them on YouTube, they all believe the news. That's why I don't debate Fight the Flat Earth or McToon. They've invited me, but I wonder, what's the point? What's the point? You guys believe everything you see on the screen. Your head's in the box. None of what I say would even be included. They don't allow you to bring up special effects. Dirk says, why would asking people who believe in chemtrails about it, why would it make them go crazy? It proves it's all emotions and insanity. Yeah, it's called MK Ultra, trauma-induced mind control. So they used to enjoy life, or they used to enjoy the skies, and then one day they were given this mind virus that, yes, these things are toxic. Now all your blue skies are gray, and now it's toxic, and you're being poisoned, and nobody cares. So they're dragged into the red pill nightmare universe. That's trauma-induced mind control. And when you press that button, they get triggered predictably. They're MK Ultra puppets. And what we're doing here is we're testing it we're triggering these issues to see how they react. And if you're still reacting, then they control you. That's how this works. The conspiracy realm is really just a reaction to the mainstream. It's not any truthier. It takes place in the same fictional universe. And chemtrails only exist in a fictional universe. Defrag Unplugged says, I feel like the idea of nothing is real is an easy way to cope with no action being taken by you or others if it's discovered to be true. Yeah, the nothing is real, have it wrong. Because saying nothing is real or everything is fake is the exact same philosophical error as saying everything is real on TV. Nothing is fake. The question is, really to me, it's about understanding, first of all, what media is, and then the question is, how do we know what's real and fake, and what constitutes an extraordinary claim? And knowing how to know this stuff, that's what we're aiming for here, methodology. This isn't knee-jerk, it's not partisan, and a lot of the right, I mean, so when I say right, I'm not just referring to the politics, left, right, Republican, Democrat, but I'm talking about this wider political spectrum, and the political horseshoe theory makes sense here. But the conspiracy theorists in general tend to fall into everything on the mainstream is fake, which is, they're half right. But then they believe everything on their side. Anti-vax, weather weapons, QAnon, Trumpism. Dinah South says the sun isn't yellow anymore. Yep. K-Way says informed disbelief. Yeah, look, we are aiming at that. This is the point. This is meant to be a third branch of media specifically for non-believers, specifically for informed non-believers. I know why I don't believe the crap you believe, and you don't know, or you don't have enough information to know it to be true. So you're left with trusting the blue checks, trusting corporate government-controlled media. Good for you. And at this point, 2024, if you're still outsourcing your worldview, at this point, I think you just haven't been paying attention. And a lot of people are noticing fakery, but if they're still confined in the alt media box, it doesn't matter. We have to break away from all those influencers who are too influential and too loud and who take up all of the air. Because we have very little in common with the alt, with the anti. You have to be anti-anti as well as anti-pro. We know the pro is wrong. Anti is assumed to be right because it goes against the pro, but they're a controlled dialectic in every one of these issues. And so the basis for organizing on off-world stage means we're outside the political horseshoe. We're not taking sides. This is conscientious objection to the Psy war. And a lot of people are mad at that. And it's like, stay where the chemtrails are. Keep your phobias, your sky phobia. Be afraid of aliens. That's on you. You can have your religious wars, your race wars, your various paranoias, and keep them there. Because those of us who are skeptical are amassing in a completely different branch of media. Alt media is non-skeptical and passive. Mainstream is non-skeptical and passive. What we're doing here is we're being active consumers of media. We're evaluating it before we accept it. And that's a big difference. And it means that we have to suspend judgment on things that we can't possibly know. And I don't have enough information to know that I can trust that the world is as presented by NASA, so I'm left with, I don't know. And if that bothers people that I'm in the I don't know territory, that's not my issue. Okay, let's move on. Now, this is the other comment here. He said, can anyone give, this is from the same debate, enjoy your day, can anyone give exact measurements so we can test out your model? Why can we have all the measurements for the globe, but not the ones from the flat Earth? Valid question, but what I'm pointing out is that there is no flat Earth model. The lack of curvature raises a question about the ball, and our contention here seems to be that the ball is a deep fake. What we've been presented with is a deep fake. Even if it is what they say, it's not what they've shown us from the picture. They're showing us some kind of a lemon. They're not showing us the real thing, which is probably much nicer. So sphere agnosticism makes sense at this time. But he also raises the point again, numerous free trips to Antarctica have been offered, and it's showing a lack of seriousness. And I would go in a heartbeat. I'd go just to, meet the penguins, just look at, sightseeing. But there are people turning down $30,000 tickets. I would fake being a flat earther to go to Antarctica. What's up, Thought Criminals, says Tim and Vic. Bob Sapp says, I haven't seen Jurassic in a while. Go to his channel. I haven't heard. I don't really keep up with many more channels than maybe Jurassic, Fakeologist, JLB. Actually, I have a list of others as well I'm adding to it. Reverse History, Armin Ree is a podcast worth looking at and listening to. And one of the things I want to do is use the Auto Hoax Con number 2 coming up later this month to try to get everybody on the same sheet as far as if you want a list of who's who in media deconstruction, who's noticing these patterns, who's a complete media skeptic. These are voices to listen to. Not that they're all ideologically pure. Some of them are still engaged in politics and whatnot, but it's been a slow news week. So if you haven't heard from Garrow in a few days, it's probably just that. Okay, let's see here. Armin Reese says, I heard he was upset at the crowd here. Oh, well, last time there were some people who were a bit mad, but that's always the case. And this is the internet, and I just expect it. I think it's more important to pay attention to the people who are serious about the information. Personal attacks and trolling is kind of a vestige of old YouTube culture, YouTube wars. R. Cook says, I'd fund an IPS Antarctica expedition. I did my due diligence. I looked into it, and I can get a ticket for $10K, but I'd want to buy a ticket for a camera person as well. We want it to be recorded. Jacob Menden says, all the shills on BitChute are talking about Trump's joke at the... Yeah, okay, Trump did tell some jokes at the Al Smith dinner where they roast each other, and some of those jokes that were written for him were very, very well delivered. It's undeniable that he's a TV star and a comedian, sure. But, yes, they're really enamored with him, and that's fine. I understand people are totally enamored with the world stage characters. They really get into it. But I'm just not a participant. I think as a conscientious objector, I can't vote for Trump. That's the anti-position. It's anti the pro. So I'd have to be a non-voter, you would think. But the reason I'm not is that non-voting is a world stage acceptable position. So I thought, well, how can I take a position that both protests the participation, but also isn't just thrown into a void? So I said that I'm going to vote for Kamala and Tim Walz to trigger the knee-jerk Trump supporters who are marching behind him like he's a Pied Piper. So yeah, I do have a plan to go vote for Harris and Walz, and I hate to say it, I really do. It's embarrassing, but I have to walk the walk. Mercedes says, Tim, have you heard the documentary on YouTube Chan, The Blue? The doc called The Gray. The lady who put it out shows the world was created in 8 minutes. Oh, no, show me. Post a link. Post a link, please. Yeah, R. Cook, $30K for IPS, cameraman, and Chief Crow. And it would be a documentary, and if you invested in it, we would go. Absolutely. And we've talked about this before. We have so many plans. So one of the things we had talked about was this concept of finding the edge. So we were already talking about this a long time ago, but we put all of our weight behind Mad Mike Hughes. As the first and only civilian space program, and as far as I know, the only rocket launch that really had a human in it. And that was a successful launch 2018 if you watched it on Amazon. I think he went 1,800 some feet. Now, he did perish in the 2020 crash. Daredevil died a Daredevil's death. And that was done under the auspices of a TV show called Homemade Astronauts that the Science Channel was funding. So it wasn't a flat Earth rocket crash. That was always a misconception. Nor was he trying to prove the Earth was flat by flying 5,000 feet. The purpose of it was to get a movement around somebody taking some kind of action involving going in a secondary launch to the Kármán line using a composite craft, a Raccoon, which is not a new concept. And it was built, it was ready to go, but we were already moving towards, let's get some answers. And then following this, we had a member of this channel, Exploring Again, who was making a lot of moves towards going around and through Antarctica. A lot of things got put on hold in 2020. Assassin says, a clear thinker you are. That's the point here. We're in the fog of Psywar. There's a deliberate confusion. You have multiple mutually exclusive yet coexisting belief systems all in this big melting pot of subjectivity, the sea of irrelevance, and there's no clarity. And even if you tell somebody something that's 100% true, they're not in the right context to make sense of it or to even do anything useful with it. You have to leave the box. And the people who wake up, so-called, generally end up in Woketown or Trutherville, which is a wrong turn. You should be stepping away from the screen, not going deeper. And by away, I don't mean ignoring it. I don't mean head in the sand. I don't mean tuning out, because you can't tune out. I think you have to tune in deeper, but also take into consideration that which is not in the frame. What's backstage? What are they adding? What's the augmentations as far as special effects and deep fakery, which is not new. But it's so much deeper than digital deep fakes and hyper-realistic disguises and masks, because we're talking about a long-term, ongoing mind war that involves a power elite with a prefabricated history, what I call the metascript, and they're enacting it on the world stage, psyop by psyop by psyop. Think about it. Every fake news event that we've ever analyzed goes into the history books as reported by CNN. That is the official version. What we're doing here isn't banned. It's not considered like banned content. It's not even acknowledged. Real skepticism, media fakery deconstruction doesn't exist. R. Cook says, maybe IPS should go when those other clowns go. 24-hour sunbathing. Yeah, that's what I was looking at. I was looking at, could I get out there at the same time or even before? And yeah, there are some trips. So yes, if somebody's serious about it, like if you really think it, I would make it into a documentary as well as a series of live streams. I do have the IPS Reporter Fund. And so this is a Give, Send, Go set up specifically to fund IPS operations. So here's what it says. The Infinite Plane Radio Deep Dives. We're leading a third branch of media. You have mainstream, alternative, and now us, the parallel media. We have a list of leads for investigative reportage and more than 150 IPR Press Club members. These funds will go to reporters and the generation of high-quality content. So if you want to fund IPR deep dives, this is Give, Send, Go. I have a lot of writers and a lot of very talented people who are ready to be activated. And so I'm setting everything up in advance. So whether or not I win versus Google, YouTube, Goldfinch, now or later, I do want to somehow get some momentum behind our army of reporters. All right, let's continue. Rambo says, and this is on Twitter, he said, and this guy has 50,000 followers, he said, doesn't matter where you are, whether walking down the street, shopping centers, restaurants, or cinemas, have a look around. Everyone is just looking down at their phones. Sad to see. I don't think it's sad. I really don't have an issue with it. But my response was, you have 50,000 followers on X right now, looking down at their phones, reading your tweet about how sad they are for doing so. Mango says you'd make waves, bro. Yeah, we'll do it. Like I said, exploring again was in the process. Mercedes says, what's your thoughts on Richie from Boston? Richie from Boston is a chemtrail Greta. He's a chemtrail Greta, kind of a doom boofer. Personally, I think he's charismatic. I find him likable. I don't dislike him, but I don't care for the grift. I don't care for the sky is falling crap. And at one point, I found him to be very credible. I figured his voice, his vocal fry, I thought this guy's been inhaling chemtrails for years. He's out there warning us about the toxic skies, and it's taken its toll. Now I find out it's just because he vapes with his windows rolled up. Very soon, they're going to remove the blocks on Twitter. You can no longer block people. They can read your tweets. And because of that, Tim Pool is going to quit Twitter. It's kind of weak. And you can read people's tweets anyway if you didn't know. Just open up a backup account. But yeah, another change happening. I'm kind of looking forward to it. Okay, let's get to this. This is pretty interesting take on various forms of psychological warfare. This is a short clip from a Reawaken event in Selma.
Number 2 are the propagandists and hybrid warfare specialists. That's the fake news, the incredibly fake and insulting fact-checking apparatus, and also hybrid warfare, psychological warfare, online warfare. It's all cognitive warfare to keep you psychologically off balance, to trigger people and to manipulate people. So I would bring up Haitians eating cats and dogs, and this is being spread by the top tier right-wing influencers. People like Jack Posobiec were sharing images of someone roasting a lamb and then saying this was an immigrant eating a golden retriever. Someone roasting chickens and saying these are immigrants eating cats. Like, they know this isn't true, but they're manipulating millions of people, and they love doing it. I mean, they're like arsonists on the world stage. Manipulate people, and of course there's the silo of media bias that herds people into categories and groups and then tells them that the other is the problem. Constantly.
There's a lot of good media analysis that I hear at these various events, and a lot of it is very accurate about hybrid warfare, propaganda, and fake news, but where they fall short is they're only critical of the other side. And this is like Team Q. So when a QAnoner tells me the news is fake, it's like, well, you think JFK Jr. is going to rise from the dead or something. So it's a contaminated environment. Their worldview is not coherent. Another example of how the truth can get out there, but if the person isn't standing in the right place, if they're in the alt media box, it's not going to have any weight. MTG is preparing us for another January 6th. Here she is on InfoWars, and she says, Dominion voting machines are flipping on Trump votes in Georgia. Marjorie Greene went on Alex Jones and claimed, and this is the DC bomber, the pipe bomber, right? Says, we have these Dominion machines. You go through and you mark President and Congress, and when they're finished, the machine prints their ballot.
and each voter has to review it to make sure it's the candidate they voted for. In this case, it changed. It was not Donald Trump, and it was not me. This just started. It's extremely concerning, similar to what we heard in 2020. Now, I don't know if I believe this. I didn't believe it the first time. I think this is all obviously triggering news. So this is exactly what I was referencing before. This is the psychological warfare. This is triggering a bunch of people. And hopefully she's at the next insurrection. She could be the QAnon shamaness, or maybe the next Ashley Babbitt. Jay Nelson says, RFB. Yeah, look, RFB lost me on March 31st, 2020. He said on April Fool's Day they were going to shut down the internet. A black car was going to go to his house. They were going to pick him up and take him away. And then at the end he said, and if you use the code Richie from Boston, you'll get 20% off of these storable food items. So he's selling us storable food items the eve of the apocalypse before the internet gets shut down. And so I'm thinking, if they shut down the internet, how are they going to send these meals to me? And he won't be around because he'll have been kidnapped. Well, it didn't happen. And if someone's going to use that kind of manipulation to sell products that we don't need, then it's just like, I'll just go listen to CNN at this point. Okay, Trump says we're dumb. Okay, this is an interesting one. Another example, this is rage baiting. So this is Lauren Witzke, who once claimed she was a flat earther. I noticed that a lot of these high-profile provocateurs will claim to be things, or they'll say things are fake. They'll say things to associate their bad ideology with us. So here, this is interesting as a case study. She says, nothing to see here, just a Kamala surrogate doing what they do best. Now what you see in the video is a canvasser for Kamala, and you can see the flyers. He puts one on the door. And then next, you see that scooter behind him. Now notice there's something attached to the front of the scooter that's parked right there in front of the house. What is that? And he drives off. So a lot of people come out here and they just, turns out that this is one of those rental scooters and you scan a QR code to unlock it. So the original uploader clipped the video where he scanned it to rent it, and they uploaded it without it, making it look like he stole it. And then this is being shared by top tier right-wing influencers. And their followers don't fact check. Their cognitive bias kicks in and they just tweet out their racism. So Lauren Witzke, racists first, fact checks never. And it's not the first time I've seen her doing this. It's one of the reasons I monitor a lot of these right-wing influencers, because they all do it in mass. So this is a rental scooter, to be clear. I mean, in my opinion, she should be sued for this. This is some serious defamation. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, do you believe in predeterminism or free will? I will view the context of your worldview based on your response. Free will. I mean, what else can you say? Like, I can't autopilot. I can't just relax and then it just happens. Like, no, everything I do takes effort. I mean, how do you define will? Angst G says, do you think Roseanne Barr is a Poe? Parody of extremism? I think so. I think she's acting on the world stage. I don't think she really believes that Hillary Clinton eats babies, but she knows if she screams that into a mic in front of an audience and Tucker Carlson's like, yes, agreeing with it in the background, I think she knows it's money. It's a gig. It's entertaining. It's funny. You just have to look at it as comedy. Like even Nick Fuentes, maybe he's repulsive in every way. However, you could argue that if people didn't take him seriously, he would have a Netflix special for comedy, because he is pretty funny from a POE perspective, and I think he might even be. Like, I really think some of these agitators are portraying characters. So in a way, if you look at it from that broader context, it is kind of comedy. Simulation theory is a hoax. The idea that there's a simulation that we're in, and this is some kind of computer game or something, yeah, that's a hoax. And also, simulation theory has been delivered. They did this. If you start to pick up on predictive programming, instead of coming to the right conclusion that we live in a false worldview, you arrive at the wrong conclusion that we live in a false world. That is a simulation. It's important to remember that the screen is not a window to the world, but it's a filter. Yeah, Elephant Tusks, why don't you call in? You're saying my definition of free will is incorrect. Like, yeah, I really think it's so hard. If I could just end not complaining, I like this work, but like in my life in general, things could be streamlined if I didn't feel like I had a deeper purpose. But if you're suggesting there is no purpose, it's all predetermined, and if so, then whoever wrote the script is just weird. Like, honestly, if everything's predetermined, if you look at some of the stuff going on, God's weird. Or the devil, you're going to see whatever you want to throw in there. You're going to blame the devil for all the stuff that just shouldn't be. It's kind of a cop-out, by the way. I think it's an oversimplification. But no, I don't know what you mean. You don't define what you mean, and you haven't called in, so I don't know. Number is 505-510-4226. Objective reality exists. Mandela effects are a hoax. There are no Mandela effects. There are false memories. The Mandela effect is a consequence of something called the misinformation effect, and it's being applied deliberately to truthers as cognitive sabotage. You're noticing, you're thinking, they throw this in there, and now you've accepted this new paradigm where, hey, the fakery, they want you to lose the distinction between the metaverse and the meatverse. They want you to think that the map is the territory, and it's not. Elephant Tusk says pawns in a larger game. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, that's your opinion. You don't know. And that's why I stay out of the realm of belief. Assassin says, JFK blown away. What more do I have to say? Here's the thing about JFK. His assassination, which I referenced a little while ago. JFK's assassination was filmed by Abraham Zapruder, but it was directed by Stanley Kubrick. He wasn't killed. It was a simulation. And there's plenty of evidence to support this. The assassination of JFK was a simulation. So here's a couple of interesting points here. November 22nd, 1963, the day of the JFK shooting, 2 quotes from the original movie Dr. Strangelove. 1, gentlemen, our gallant young president has been struck down in his prime. Another one, shoot, a fella could have a pretty good weekend in Dallas with all that stuff. So the person posting it said, if this doesn't make you suspect any foreknowledge of the JFK hoax, it's up to you. Believe what you will. However, you may know that Kubrick is widely suspected of having foreknowledge about the Apollo moon landing hoaxes. Of course, JFK was the dude who sold us on the wondrous idea of landing on the moon, thus the Kennedy Space Center. Yeah, and they launched a lot of interesting Kennedy and deaths. Kennedy deaths connected to Kubrick. It says, of course, Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove dealt with another major hoax sold to the public, the atom bomb. Yeah, the atom bomb is a God construct. It's the way that the state gets you to believe in this war God. And if you duck and cover, I'm not going to duck and cover. If you believe in the atom bomb and they flash its image on the screen and they say duck and cover and you hide under your bed, then they control you. That's MK Ultra. I will not be groveling on the floor. How many more Kubrick coincidences are we supposed to accept as mere coincidence? Kubrick alerted us for some reason about 3 major hoaxes of our time, the moon landing, JFK, and the atom bomb, and perhaps even September 11th, with his 2001 Space Odyssey, and Eyes Wide Shut, released on the 30th anniversary of Apollo 11. All very good. He was one of the main directors of the 20th century. So here's an article from the LA Times. Very interesting piece here. And it has to do with the release date of Dr. Strangelove. Dr. Strangelove's connection to the JFK assassination. So they had the screening the night before, and there's a number of things that they had to change. Okay, a pie-throwing scene was cut from the scene where Kubrick said it was too light, and it had a line in it that said, quote, our beloved president has been struck down in his prime. So a pie-throwing scene, and then a mention of the president dying. There's a measure of controversy surrounding why the scene was cut. You can read about it at film.com. Kubrick changed a line in the film that said, "A fella could have a pretty good weekend in Dallas," and they changed it to Vegas. Suggestive of foreknowledge? Yeah, sure. But not foreknowledge of something that's about to happen. Rather, foreknowledge, or rather, foreshadowing what's going to be portrayed on the world stage. So it's foreshadowing. And it is foreknowledge. Foreknowledge of fakery. Here's another still from They're Already Here. He found this great shot. This is from The Shining, where Danny is going down a hallway, and he passes these two vents that look very similar to the Twin Towers. And this, of course, makes a lot more sense when you connect it to other scenery and symbolism within The Shining that foreshadow 9/11. A lot of people talk about foreshadowing in The Shining for Apollo 11, but here's some of the September 11th stuff. The twins, Twin Towers, Danny going down the hall that we just showed, twins in his vision, destroyed, fireman's axe upside down chair looks like ground zero. He's throwing darts, twins next to a bell telephone tower. Next to the Twin Towers, bell, telephone tower. Well, they're next to the phone booth, which represents the tower. So they're playing the role of the Twin Towers. He's throwing darts. Then you have, at the scene of ground zero, you have this massive ramp and this rectangular pit where they're doing the cleanup. And it looks very similar, strikingly similar, to the pit on the moon where they've uncovered the monolith. Well, at ground zero, overlooking ground zero, is the Millennium Hilton, which looks like the monolith, and it's designed to be... Did we just get disconnected? Saints would have hit it. Saints would have hit it. Yeah, thank you, American Fathers. Millennium Falcon, shaped like the WTC complex. I didn't know that. I have to look at that now. Yeah, I saw that the stream dropped. So hopefully we're good now. I'll Frankenstein it together. Yeah, I'd like to know more about what you just brought up, because the Millennium Falcon, I think, is a reference to Horus. Yeah, we got hit by gremlins a minute ago. Give it just a moment. Don't know what caused that. Okay, let's move on. Let's get to the rest of my notes before they shut us down. We were talking about ground zero. Before that, we were talking about rage baiting. Coincidences, or rather not coincidences. So Lionel from Lionel Media. Now, this guy's intelligent. He's a lawyer. Personally, I think he's too smart to fall for something like this. So he's sharing an image of condensation trails from airplanes. And his caption is, "What is this?" So this is what I would call a bad faith question. It's a bad faith question. What is this? Is it even a valid question to ask? And my argument here is that no, it's actually not even a valid question if the answers are readily available. If he was being honest, he would be bringing answers, not mere questions. And this is called an appeal to ignorance fallacy. This is appealing to those who don't know, who may already be skeptical of mainstream science and therefore susceptible to this particular psyop. So he's fishing for the ignorant. It's an appeal to ignorance. And it is also a bad faith question. At least he didn't say, what are they spraying? Which would be even worse. But asking a question when there is an answer is very misleading, and it's by design. It's by design. And you know what the answers are going to be because of his political leanings. Everyone's going to say what it is, except for me. I mean, everyone's going to say what he thinks it is, which is, of course, Harvard's geoengineering, poisoning the sky, death from the sky, human-induced climate change. Again, a lot of people here just automatically fall for it. So I'm just pointing out that is a a technique. It's a propaganda technique. We have to look at these various influencers as propagandists, and they're using techniques of marketing and propaganda in every one of their posts. In this case, this is definitely a propaganda technique. All right, let's see. Yeah, we're back online. I think we got cut off on a few channels. Are we still off? No, we're back on. We're back on, just to be sure. So tomorrow, just a heads up for tomorrow, we're going to be live on Infinite Plane Saturn Day, and right after, we're going to do the IPS Deep Think Tank episode number 4. So if you want to participate in that, all you have to do is check your email tomorrow and get the live stream notification. And right after our live stream tomorrow, we're going to go into Discord, and we'll continue and go in any direction people want to take it. That's kind of the point here. We want to go outside of our usual topics and see what we're missing, if anything. And last time, a lot of interesting stuff came up that didn't make it to the live stream, but it definitely added a lot to what we talk about now. So we're trying to get a lot of information, and not everybody can call in, but Discord is accessible to pretty much everyone. Okay, I had a couple other items here. So Garrett Ziegler resorts to illegal online raffle to fund legal defense against Hunter Biden. So I looked into this. George News, aka the person I'm suing, who is part of Garrett Ziegler's Marco Polo 501c3, is auctioning off the domain 47.live. For $45, you can be entered into a raffle in order to win this domain, which he claims is worth 6 digits, is what he said. I think he said it's $100,000. So I looked into this. Here's what he said. On November 7th, we're giving away this domain. It's a huge piece of digital real estate, a top-level domain. And they need it to fund their fight against the Biden regime. So in other words, he's getting sued for publishing the laptop. So the person I'm suing is also being sued by Hunter Biden. Now, why is this illegal? Well, I looked into it, and I'm assuming he's in California, but he could be in a few places. It would still be the same thing. But there are certain elements here that have to do with the entry fee, the prize, and the chance element, random selection. And with these elements, it may qualify as gambling rather than a raffle. And one of the issues here is there's no real disclosures. It's not really transparent. And it's not registered with any state agencies. And he's not even a qualified nonprofit. That's been called into question. I mean, maybe he could argue this, but the fact that he's anonymous is also very questionable. And again, George News, the person behind it, is a John Doe defendant with the Hunter Biden versus Garrett Ziegler lawsuit. So he's running an illegal raffle. I reported the last one to the FTC. I'm probably going to report this one as well to the FBI as wire fraud, as I did the last one. So we'll see. But another heads up, our first pretrial hearing is going to be on October 31st. So just a couple more weeks. And it'll be myself versus Google versus George News / Marcus. Again, this in the Superior Court of California, San Mateo County. I'll keep you updated. I haven't talked about it a lot because we're almost there. And I figured, well, just wait and see. And from there, I think it's all downhill once the trial starts, if it goes to trial. Jay Nelson said, did JFK throw a dead bear in Central Park? Oh, no, RFK, excuse me, the other one. RFK Jr. Yes, RFK Jr. found a dead bear. He was going to eat it, but instead, as a joke, put it on a bike trail. And then he brought it up in a podcast interview during his campaign, and it was connected to a previous story about a dead bear found in a park, and there were pictures to go along with it. I think he also sawed the head off a whale. About the dead bears, I don't know. And then he had the barbecue dog, and that was strange. The barbecue dog picture of him, which was around the time of, it was during the dog days of summer. and Sirius the dog star, which means Sirius means scorcher. So here we go. Photo appears to show RFK Jr. with the barbecued carcass of a dog. Now I'm saying dog, and I feel comfortable saying this. If Jack Posobiec can call a sheep a Labrador Retriever for propaganda purposes, then I can call this a dog, even though maybe somebody found out it was a goat. Armin Reese says, October 31st, Thursday, that's the first line in the movie The Batman. Well, the next Batman date to look for is November the 5th. November the 5th, of course, election date, but also the flood date in The Batman. And Gotham's underwater on 11/6. So a couple of other things about 11/5. You have Guy Fawkes Day and the Guy Fawkes movie V for Vendetta, which had 2020 predictive programming. That movie was a product of Alan Moore. Alan Moore, Metascriptor. So if Alan Moore, Metascriptor, popularized the image of Guy Fawkes, the anonymous face, then this connects, because the QAnon movement is both Q and it's the Anon movement with the Guy Fawkes mask. They're inseparable. In fact, George News's imagery is all the Guy Fawkes mask. He's an Anon. So the connection here is this. In the Batman movie, it's the Anons, the online activists, who flood New York. It's their script perspective to have something analogous to what we saw in Batman connected to QAnon based upon the date, Alan Moore, and his history, his past as being a metascriptor. Even like The Watchmen and others contain copious predictive programming. So there's plenty there. Okay, phones are still open, 505-510-4226 for a few more minutes here. Let's get back on topic. I'm just going through my bookmarks. I tend to skip my...
Election season is here. Remember.
Tired of all these commercials too. I have a lot of tweets bookmarked I want to get through before we end it tonight. By the way, you can follow me at IPS Think Tank. We also have our live streams on Twitter. So let's look at the numbers. Right now we have, well, the numbers have dropped. So we had a higher peak. We're back over 100, but we did have gremlins chewing through the wires. We were temporarily shut down. Kind of a slow news week. We've been talking about the flat universe thing for a little while here, and I was looking it up, and Neil Gaiman, I'm trying to find who's the first person to suggest that we're in a flat universe. Neil Gaiman said, I think it's infinitely inferior to my own flat universe theory when asked about flat Earth. He says, instead of a Big Bang, everything came into existence when God slid the universe under a door. So Neil Gaiman, interesting character, writer rather. I've been sharing everything wrong with the Capitol shooting. I don't think this has sunk in. I think it went over the heads of Trutherville. This is from Woo's News. If you haven't seen this, this is a collection. This is basically the best breakdown, frame by frame, of January 6th in existence. And it's by Woo's News. He's working on part 3 right now. And I'll put a link here. I think he's seeking support for producing part 3. Part 2 was also very good. But he has made it very clear that J6 was undoubtedly, provably, a simulation. A simulated riot. Nobody died. No cops died. Ashley Babbitt didn't die. And moreover, every one of your trusted right-wing influencers, top to bottom, were all in on it. Jones, Q Shaman, and all of these political agitators and provocateurs, they're all part of it. So here's a short clip. And this is, again, Woo's News talking about J6.
The simulated riots in D.C. was a powder keg long in the making. The evidence for pre-planning and setting up a situation for a disaster is overwhelming. Paid actors. We can take that place!
I want to confess that I was paid to pretend to protest today.
Now, he makes a really strong case for it frame by frame. It's a must-watch because if you don't include this in your assessment of the media today, then you're in the MSM box. if you're not including in your assessment the fact that Trump is a magician, that January 6th was a magic trick, July 13th was a magic trick, that doesn't sink in. And it's a fact. It's a fact that Trump's assassination attempt was fake. That's a fact. However, people can't put that fact in the right context. Like, what does it mean? What does it imply? If it was faked, then what? They don't go that far. They maybe say, well, maybe he faked it to win the election. Maybe it was merely a PR stunt. And it's like, no, it's much worse than that. Way too loud. Sorry about that. You can blame Woo's News. Tell him his channel's too loud. I should have adjusted the settings first. We do have louder volume. If it goes too loud, I'm sorry. Just to recap, Sydney Wilson was 33 in apartment 322. You can verify it for yourself. Apartment door. Kind of sus. Another indicator of fakery is overt symbolism. Doesn't mean it's fake, but it shouldn't be predictable. It shouldn't be the next news event that we see that's obviously fake. It's just going to be stamped with the same things. Like, we used to do these pop quizzes because it was so predictable. How many bullets? Oh yeah, she was 6'6". So you got 6'6", 3'3", 322. How many bullets did Frank James fire into the subway? And none of you should know the answer. I'm like, hey, some random guy shoots up a subway. How many bullets did he fire? And yet, every single time, everyone here gets the answer right. Reverse History says, I watched Assassination Run from The Boys today. The beginning of the episode showcases a newscast featuring the date January 6th. Looking forward. Okay, that's interesting. Someone told me that on The Boys, there's a scene where they're watching Taxi Driver. So Taxi Driver, of course, is the basis for the Joker. And the Joker, kills Robert De Niro in the Joker. And Robert De Niro is a Trump predictive programming proxy. And of course, since De Niro, playing Travis Bickle, inspired John Hinckley Jr. to shoot Reagan, you have the connection between the presidential assassin, inspired by an assassin in a movie, now in the role of the assassinated, and outside of the courthouse of the person to be assassinated. And so this idea of a predictive programming proxy is simply that when these actors portray a real-world person in some future news event in the capacity of predictive programming, it's like they're a stand-in, like Biff Tannen, Trump proxy. And of course, many other examples we could bring up. Rupert Thorne in Batman Caped Crusader represents Trump, and Batman throws the boomerang at him and clips his ear. And then Amazon picks up season 2 on 8/4. So 8/4, like 8th episode, season 4, Assassination Run. It's very consistent when you get into the scripting here. It's actually predictable. Yeah, De Niro was the taxi driver assassin, and then in Joker, based on Taxi Driver, he shoots De Niro. And De Niro was the senator, the racist, xenophobic senator in Machete 2010. And in that one, he's talking about the immigrants when he gets shot, just like Trump was. So we have multiple examples of De Niro playing roles that tie into Trump. And there he is at the end at the last Trump trial, like displaying his Trump derangement. And I said, there's no way that Robert De Niro is just here randomly. And sure enough, we uncovered really in rapid succession all these examples of predictive programming that he was connected to, including the movie Deer Hunter, for example. My Third Eye says, I heard the real Joker kills Joaquin Phoenix at the end of Joker 2. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. A lot of people had mixed feelings about that movie. I watched Joker 2. The tagline was "The world's a stage." And you can't separate the news from the movies these days because we live in a movie. That's what this world stage simulation ultimately is. It's being conveyed to us through a special effects and movie-enhanced reality. So the Joker movie, though, if you recall, they were filming Joker 2 at the courthouse where Trump was on trial on 4/4/2023. So you're like, wow, this mob was there for Joker while Trump's on the inside. And people driving by thought that, yeah, this mob was there for Trump. So they merged real and fake back then. So Joker 2 can't be separated from Trump. And then we have found numerous connections between every Trump trial and the Joker movie. De Niro being one. The Joker crowd outside of his theater being another. And then you have the guy burning himself on 419 outside the courthouse. We've got connections with every Trump trial to the Batman universe. And then he goes to Aurora, where the shooter was. And then we have these other connections. So Thomas Matthew Crook, the shooter on 7/13. I'm surprised they haven't said he was a flat earther. Like, oh yeah, he would have shot Trump, but he thinks the earth is stationary and did not account for the rotation of the earth, and therefore he missed. Like a real sniper would have accounted for the earth's turning. So the earth's rotation saved Trump, is what they could say. But he looks like the Riddler. Thomas, well, he did before he was shot in the head. If you look at the pictures before, I mean, it's all fake, obviously, but he looks like a young version of the Riddler. So you got the Riddler and Thomas Crook looking the same. And the media says that Thomas Crook is an enigma. Multiple headlines. Well, what is the Riddler's name? Edward Nigma. Enigma. So you have this Riddler Batman universe connection to the first Trump shooting. Then the second shooter, Ryan Routh, the golf course guy, he comes out with his blue and yellow hair, laughs while he's being arrested, kind of Joker-esque in that regard. And I think there's a connection here with the second shooter, just as Joker 2 comes out. And of course, Beetlejuice 2 comes out. So we see this theme of this Joker character and the second one all popping out at once. So the second shooter correlates with second Joker and the second Beetlejuice, who comes out with his green hair. And he's another Joker archetype. So we're talking about archetypes here. And the Joker is the chaos agent, the lone wolf, the lone nut. Okay, reverse history says, The Boys Season 4 features Homelander going to trial, perfectly paralleling the Trump trial. And the writer admits the episode is written 2 years ago. So this is an example of concurrent programming where you're watching it on Netflix and it's happening on the news. And there's no way this could be without foreknowledge, or, as I would contend, that the entertainment is literally foreshadowing for future fake news. Look at A Man in Fool, based on a Tom Wolfe novel from more than 20 years ago, perfectly about Trump right now and the whole Trump trial. And it just went on Netflix. And the Charlie Coker character, 100% based on Trump. You have a Barron, you have a Melania, and grotesquely, his wife would correspond with Ivanka. And then he dies following the machinations of the Chicago mayor, who's obviously representing Obama. So how many times have they killed Trump in these recent movies? It's ridiculous. American Father says, news, movies, and sports are all running the same themes together. Yeah, it's concerted messaging. So concerted messaging is another term I've been using, another phrase to explain how these aren't coincidences. In Houston, you had a 90-foot tall statue of the monkey god erected. You had 1 million people concurrently playing a game called Black Myth, where they're avatars of this monkey god. Now, these are separate but connected. And then you have the WHO, and this is August 14th, declaring monkeypox a global problem. On that day, Bad Monkey comes out on Apple TV, the Vince Vaughn. So you have Bad Monkey, you have monkeypox, and then you have this 90-foot tall monkey statue. You have 1 million people mentally, they're immersed in the simulation, they're playing the monkey god as an archetype. So we're looking at this as, okay, what's the build-up here? What's the messaging? And I said this is representing the advent of the rage virus, the mind virus, disease X. The monkey virus is disease X, the WHO placeholder for the big one. That it's going to be a mind virus, and it's going to come from X. And I think I've been vindicated on this. So looking into it deeper, we find there's a 28 years later is being produced, and that's by the guy who did 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later is about a rage virus that monkeys catch by watching in this laboratory. They're watching like violence on TV. So rage virus is already tied into the story. 28 Days Later, connection with the ape. Then you fast forward to 3/11 of 2024, a movie Monkey Man comes out. Jordan Peele is one of its producers. Monkey Man comes out on 3/11, Virus Day, Pandemic Day. And it's about a boxer in a monkey mask whose rage explodes. And Jordan Peele's connected to Nope, which not only has a rage chimp that murders everybody, but he says the movie was inspired by the spectacle of George Floyd's death, describing how it's basically saying that seeing the violence against Floyd triggered 2020's summer of riots, rage virus. So Nope was about a rage virus. So it's a reoccurring theme. Planet of the Apes is out this year, so it's in the zeitgeist. The concerted messaging in the zeitgeist is connecting something here. And this connection has to do with, I believe, the rage virus. Also notable that the author of 28 Days Later is the director of Civil War, which is about rage viruses from the right wing, left wing, right, probably both, but the movie's mostly about the right wing anti-media types, and they're fighting everybody else, and Trump's in the White House. I mean, it's literally about Trump. And at the end, Kamala has to go kill him. Or they choose a black woman soldier. So what is the messaging there? Well, it's pretty ham-fisted, easy to see. Yeah, Travis Cloud, Jordan Peele owns Monkey Paw Productions. Armin Ree says, any ideas on the apparent copy of the Guidestones in China? I'd like to read them and see what their numbers are. Have they adjusted their numbers? Because the first Guidestone said keep the population at like 500 million. And I want to know if they've adjusted that up because it's too lofty of a goal to call the population that low now that we're at 8. We're supposedly at 8 billion. But I saw them. I think that the digital monolith at NATO actually supplants the Georgia Guidestones as far as the agenda for the future. I just saw it and thought it was half-assed. It was too small. And if they were legit, they would have erected it on 322. My Third Eye says, there's a show from Marvel called Hit Monkey about a monkey that's a hitman. Yeah, it's code, like the bat. You know, like the burning bat, the bat soup. It's all code. And this monkey thing was an example of concerted messaging. And predictive programming exists. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's inarguable. We can talk about it if you have doubts. You think we're cherry picking. But I have my list here of my top 11 predictive programming examples leading to the head wound of Trump. And this is not cherry. This is random. This is just like 11 out of 1,000 I could pick. But some of them are so specific. This is one from The Atlantic. And The Atlantic is owned by George Soros' son, Alex Soros, who is married to Uma Abedin, who is formerly married to Anthony Weinergate. So you can see I think it's deliberate that this would be placed here. And Laura Loomer pointed this out. And she said, if Trump shot, it was funded by George Soros. You see how these narratives work? These are clues. But look at this. It shows you the exact spot where Trump's earlobe was clipped. Right there at the top of his ear. Now, of course, he called it his lobe. We know it's not. But this is from The Atlantic. And then we had Time Magazine, where he's in a sand pit on a golf course. And it says trouble. That came out on 9/11. But so many good examples. Thine ears shall bleed. Has anybody seen this one? It looks horrible. But this is concerted messaging. We already talked about this one. This is the image from The Boys Season 4-8 Assassination Run. And 4-8 is huge in this code. 8448. 84 days after 7/13, he goes back to Butler. Season 4, Episode 8 of Stranger Things has Matthew Modine in a similar capacity being shot and killed. And that connection there goes back to Kubrick's work, Full Metal Jacket, where Matthew Modine is Joker and Joker is JFK. But the consistency is the numbers I'm pointing out here. Then you had Captain America Brave New World trailer that came out right at that time, where Harrison Ford A president who survives an assassination attempt in a theater. You see him surviving this attempt right in front of everybody, which has a lot of connections, I think, to, well, one, it's in a theater. Think Abe Lincoln. Harrison Ford's birthday, 7/13, the date that this thing happened. 7/13 is Julius Caesar's birthday, which is significant because Julius Caesar, by William Shakespeare, the play in Central Park in 2016, had them killing Trump on a stage. And Laura Loomer actually interrupted it by jumping on stage. Leave the World Behind. I have some references here. A Man in Fool I talked about. Fallout. There's a scene in Fallout where Betty Pearson, who I think is Kamala Harris, rigs the election to be overseer of Vault 33. After cleaning up a massacre, there's only one drop of blood she missed, and it's on the right side of the head of a foosball figurine that looks just like Trump. And then Machete. We talked about Machete. Now, this Machete thing goes so deep, though. De Niro, Joker, headshot on TV based on Scorsese's Taxi Driver, where he's the assassin. Real life John Hinckley Jr., inspired by De Niro, inspired by Travis Bickle to shoot Reagan, to impress Jodie Foster, who played the girl rescued by Bickle. Hinckley's birthday is 5/29, which is JFK's birthday. Another connection. And then he shot James Brady, and James Brady died on 8/4. Again, 8/4/48, and he died of a head wound. These are so consistent. It's just evidence of scripting and stagery. But I have many more examples. This one's pretty good. Trump, Braveheart avatar. Count 9 stars. And we were looking at this stuff way before. We said, hey, look, this is an indication of what's to come. He's got the 9 stars, and it looks like a 9/11 on his face. The 4-5-4-7 on his head, great 9/11 if you add them, 4-5 and 4-7. This looks like Braveheart. When he shot, he raises his fists, and it looks like Braveheart's movie poster. And he was called Braveheart when he goes back to Butler. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, dude, this is Jurassic.
Hey, what's up? Let me make sure your volume's loud enough. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just to let everyone know. The only reason I haven't called in is because my throat is messed up. My vocal cords are messed up. But
people were worried about you, and I was like, no, he's probably taking a short break. But okay, I'm glad to hear that it's just your vocal cords.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I could care less what your stupid chat says. Anyway, I heard somebody say that I was mad about something. No, I'm not mad at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I mean, I've got thick skin when it comes to trolls. I'd assume that they don't get to you either, but it doesn't mean you can't call them out for their trollishness. You know, we need to call out their behavior. Yeah. Okay, you're too low.
Yeah.
I'll turn you down a little bit. Okay, good. You're good.
All right. So what I was going to say was I'll talk a little lower, but don't forget that that 5/29 JFK's birthday is the backwards date of August 4th. You know.
Okay. Yeah, 5/29 and August 4th are connected if you count reverse on the calendar. Yeah, yet another connection. JFK's birthday and the shooter of Reagan's birthday. These connections go so deep, it's just indication of script, obviously. Jay Nelson says, could care less what Tim Stupid Chat says. He's referring to a couple of persistent trolls. I tend to block them. Every channel has its trolls, and at this point, you can entertain them if they have value. I'm not too fast on my trigger when it comes to blocking people. I rarely block people, but I try to prevent people from being too rude. But at this point, we're mostly focused on the script as it's unfolding. So what has happened in the last few days? Have we missed anything?
Well, I mean, that one singer that died, did you talk about that? I didn't really have anything on him, but that one boy band singer, wherever the hell he was.
There was the balcony thing. He fell off the balcony. I haven't looked too deeply into it, other than there was, like, here it is. This is Liam Payne from One Direction dies 48 days after his birthday, and his name equates to 48 in gematria. Nothing too strong. I don't know what it means, but the Falling Man theme is pretty strong. So I'm not quite sure. I doubt it's anything less than a psyop, but I mean, I gotta do some more digging on it.
I mean, I think it did happen on 1016, which has the 611 numbers. But other than that, I don't really see a lot. But it definitely does look like some kind of weird ritual. But I can't really make out exactly what it's about.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, I haven't dug too deep into it, but I did notice it. As a rule, any high-profile death, I just assume it to be presented out there for a reason. But at this point, it's all very questionable.
But just to make this not a wasted call, just let me one more time emphasize how Trump revealed to the world how, on when he was at the Butler rally, that he revealed my two predictions. So he has a moment of silence at 6:11, because that's when he was shot, right? So he had a moment of silence at 6:11 with the bells ringing. Basically, it's kind of like a warning or like a death. I don't know, whatever.
Okay, yeah. One thing there. So yeah, one thing there. He plays Ave Maria. Somebody sings it at 6:11. That's the song that the Riddler is singing in his cell at the end of the Batman movie. So now you have another Riddler connection to Thomas More being the shooter, and then 84 days after the shooting at the Trump rally at 6:11, another callback to that particular character. But yeah, please go on.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's 6:11. That's my prediction for Washington State, and they're basically warning. They're putting the siren. Basically they're sounding the alarm by putting those bells out, and it's connected to death because the guy there was. I guess the guy's death. That Comper Terry dude, whatever. But anyway, 6:11 was the shooting of his ear, and 84 days, that's my other prediction when Trump gets his head on 8/4. So it's 84 days after he got shot. So it's right there, man. I mean, how much more perfect do you want a puzzle to be? You're not you. I'm talking about to anyone who's listening.
Yeah, this is one of the things that we typically look at. And I was talking tonight about the 4/8 thing with all these TV shows, how it's super consistent. These season finales, 4/8. And then I brought up that Caped Crusader where it's so specific. It's another Batman reference. It comes out around the time of a shooting, and it literally has Rupert Thorne, a Trump proxy, getting his ear split on the same side of the head. So there are too many examples of this to discount it. Predictive programming exists. The script is there to be decoded. This is far beyond conjecture or cherry picking or any kind of self-deception. This is actually pretty much we're just reporting the facts.
Yep, and we'll talk about another prediction I have about something to do with Priscilla Presley. And you want to hear something really weird? Priscilla Presley, because I was saying something might happen to Priscilla Presley in December. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but Riley. The daughter of Lisa Marie, who died, Elvis's daughter, she ended up having a book that she was going to put out. So the daughter put out Lisa Marie's daughter put out the book for her, finished it, and I guess it's Lisa Marie's memoirs or whatever the hell it is. So in that book, it talks about Lisa Marie being abused or something. And now everyone's hating on Priscilla Presley. So this might lead to something here, because they're saying she allowed the abuse. So now people are hating on Priscilla Presley.
Now I haven't kept up with that, although I did find it strange that she kept her deceased son in the house for 2 months in a room at 55 degrees, and his nickname is Ben, which is also a reference to a pyramidal stone in Egyptian cosmology that has to do with creation. So there's something weird and ritualistic about that.
And that guy died.
Yeah.
And that guy died on 7/12. 7 times 12 is 84.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, again.
Yeah.
That's all really strange that they actually had a corpse in the home for a little while. Bizarre. Nothing weird about that, I guess. But to me, it seems like some kind of Egyptian, like this worship of the king and stuff. There's something there.
All right, bro. Sorry I interrupted. I just wanted to let you know I wasn't not calling on purpose or anything.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're not missing without your MIA.
All right.
Thanks for the call.
All right. Take.
Yeah, that's JL. He's still alive and kicking. Someone here had a recommendation for him. Gargle with salt water or have a spoon of honey. Now, he's only talking about specific people in the chat. I don't know who. And at this point, there's no way you can say something as far out as Trump wasn't really shot, this is all fake, without getting some amount of trolling. How do we know Garrow isn't an AI? Yeah, it would only take like 30 seconds, right? To totally hijack someone's voice. Okay, let's move on. We have Snoop Dogg killing Trump as a clown. Oh, they've been killing Trump for so long. And so what does this mean? And this was actually a point raised by Armin Ree in our last IPS deep think tank. And I totally agree with this, that they throw so much out there that it's like they saturate it. So they take all the shock value out of it. So then when they do the fake event, it seems like a natural consequence of what came before. It doesn't raise any eyebrows. In other words, they enter it into the realm of possibility so that no one questions it when it does go down. And I think that's one of the agendas here. And this is why some people aren't processing predictive programming as evidence of a conspiracy, but rather see it as just a coincidence, hardly worth noticing. So when they finally pull off the event, they're just doing something that no one finds even remotely challenging. It's like I guess you could say they are desensitizing us to the Trump head wound. I mean, here's another example. Beetlejuice, gold suit, American flag, Trump haircut, looks Trumpy, and he's in the afterlife. And when he walks by, and it's hard to see because it's just a couple of frames, but it looks like a wet, bloody spot on the side of his head. The same spot where the MAGA hats have a squib tucked in behind the 45-47. Verse History says, good to hear your voice, Garrow. Nicotrama says, JL is awesome. Well, we have a lot of interesting callers. And what are we here for but networking minds that have stepped outside of the false world view. And the first step is recognizing that the map isn't the territory and becoming cognizant of what is missing from the big picture, which is primarily the inclusion of the PSYOPs and including every one of these PSYOPs in your future assessment. You can't just say January 6th was a hoax and then live and think and process the news media as though that's a nothing burger. You're like, well, I'll vote for Trump because he'll beat the deep state. No, Trump is the deep state. There is no shallow state. There is only deep state. And he's one of its star characters. And if that's not clear by now, then yeah, you're in their box. You're in the black cube. The Saturnian death cult has formed your worldview for you. And they control time and space. And they control time with fake news, which becomes fake history. Assassin says, what's the big agenda? The big agenda is that you've already been conquered. The agenda is that the new world order isn't coming to impose a one world order and a one world religion. No, we already have the one world order. And the one world religion is Gnostology. It's scientism. So we've already been conquered. It's mind war. Read Art of War. The greatest generals it describes are those who never draw their scabbards. So humanity has been conquered. And we're in a state of complacency with it. We're in a state of total complacency because the opposition is all controlled and the issues are all fake and it's all mind war. So the good news is everything that you think is really terrifying about the world stage is fake. The bad news is resistance is futile. At least resistance organized with brainwashees. You cannot organize truthers. You cannot organize normies. It'd be like organizing mental patients to rise up against the orderlies. At this point, we have to aggregate all of those who've already stepped outside of the controlled paradigm, parallel media, which is what we are. And once we get our numbers up to 20, 30,000, a lot of this will make a lot more sense to people who might be on the fence. But this is the future. This is the cutting fringe. Assassin says, what are we doing here? Thinking. Instead of outsourcing perception, we're separating real from fake. We're employing a methodology for media consumption. You could look at this as a philosophical movement. So imagine that you grew up in a doomsday cult, some bizarre religion, and you're filled up with all kinds of fears of things that don't exist. You have a completely fallacious worldview, and it's done to disabuse you of the need to control your own life. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, caller?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, awesome. All right. Just wanted to jump in real quick. I heard, it might be a while back now, there was the author of The Handmaid's Tale was doing an interview on NPR, and she said, that she was inspired by watching news and radio, something. I'm paraphrasing what she said, but basically that's kind of, so the idea is like, whether or not these writers know that they're participating in creating predictive programming, they're doing it anyway because they're just trying to like follow current trends and current events. And I think that it's, important to understand that lacking the off-world stage perspective that that you would, if you wanted to be a media creator, you want to write a story and you want to, communicate something meaningful, you would want to be able to do that, without inadvertently carrying this alternate reality along with you. So if all of your inspiration is from world stage, media, whether these people are intentionally writing scripts or they're just copying other people, ultimately it carries along the same meta script, like you call it. And anyway, that was just my thoughts on the matter.
Very good point. Very good point, because not everyone's a meta scripter, and some people are just bit players. But the fact is, like, you could be simply reflecting the world and reflecting whatever's trendy or popular. And if you're operating in their worldview, you're in their fictional universe. So you're just naturally going to reinforce it. The same goes for news media. Your average reporters on the street are telling the truth, and they're just reporting on the world, but they're doing so from the frame of reference that their media company holds, which is, everything that we would describe as being part of the world stage. Fake nukes are real, and all the various psyops, all the fake history is real from their perspective. So the world stage makes a liar out of you, in the sense that it makes you reinforce it. And that's just the power of it. And it's certainly the case, I think, that many musicians and writers and authors and movie directors who are involved in some capacity with metascripting may not even know the full extent of it. But I think there are many who are propaganda vessels on some level, like they know. I don't know who. I have a list of who I think is pretty much in the know about a lot of these things. But yeah, you're certainly right. There's a lot of inadvertent worldview reinforcement from just non-involved or non-affiliated creative types because they're operating in that fictional universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess one other point too,
yep.
is simply that, how we have the programming class and the programmed. A lot of the programmed just naturally become programmers. They all echo and become extensions of the dominant voices. So yeah, definitely a valid observation and point there.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I could leave you with this. I don't want to take up too much time on the phone. But it is interesting how when if, from a culture of central control, where we have an understanding that these are valuable insights to understand that the distinctions between different nations are, only a facade, that the West versus East, these dichotomies, communism and capitalism and all of this stuff is, everyone has the same big picture. They all live on a spinning ball. So fundamentally, they never call each other out for lying about it either. And that's it. The value of that insight is incredible.
Yes.
I'll leave with that one for now.
Okay, appreciate the call, and good.
Hope to talk to you later.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much, and great observation. I'll go ahead and continue along those lines. Have a good night. Thanks for calling. Always appreciate our first-time callers. And to his point, all the space agencies of all the different nations are faking space in the same way. And, America doesn't call out China's space station and make fun of it because it looks like they ordered their space station from Wish. You don't have any kind of pulling the curtains back on other people's psyops anywhere. There's an agreement. And this firstly stood out to me when I realized that the right wing and the NRA aren't calling out leftist psyops that are obviously from a left-wing perspective aiming at Second Amendment. Or the left wing doesn't call out fake terror attacks that benefit the right-wing narratives. So I realized that the partisanship ends where the psy war begins, that they don't call out the fakery. So it's mutually protected as a secret. And this extends to outer space. So America could not have faked the moon landing to trick the Russians because the Russians and the Americans were tricking the world. So there's a point here where we can go ahead and dispense with the idea of separate governments. It's not an oversimplification to say there's only one government. And it's mind control. And it's worldview warfare. And that's why the space program is such a huge part of this, because we all have to agree that the world looks like this. It's this size, and these are its conditions. It's the game board. That's the main reason. It's the game board. And everybody's on the same game board. And if they're playing on this game board, then they're working together. So there's all these scary headlines emanating from far right, from conspiracy theorists, from Alex Jones, like World War III is coming, China's going to nuke us, they're going to EMP us, Russia. It's like they're all faking space. It's how the few control the many. I mean, it's pretty easy to see it from the off-world stage perspective, but you have to kind of give up some delusions, give up your hopium, and recognize that resistance is futile from within the box. And as far as resistance goes, I only advocate inactivism. I don't believe in any activism. I think conscientious objection and informed non-belief makes the most sense right now. Instead of screeching about chemtrails and not doing anything about it, and hyping up all these fears, I think it's a better idea to get as informed as we can about all the fakery and how it works. And over the last few years, and it's been accelerating in the last year, this think tank has, I think, ascertained a pretty clear perspective on how things work. We've decoded predictive programming itself. Like in other words, we discovered its function. No one in Trutherville has that. In Trutherville, they're more or less stuck in this false paradigm of real or false flag. Real or conspiracy to explain how it happened. But they never subtract, is it even real? They don't even ask. They lack that basic skepticism. And what we're doing here is what you would call the subtractive view. Travis Cloud says Call of Duty Black Ops 6 comes out on Friday the 28th. Might get a Black Ops-like psyop from last year's Modern Warfare 3. Okay, that's a good predictor. October 28th, that's a pretty significant date. First Q drop, 10/28. Matthew Perry dies, 10/28. Bill Gates born, 10/28. Elvis takes a polio shot, 10/28. The Environmentalists said we have 1,028 days left until the world ends. Do you remember that environmentalists, they were setting themselves on fire? And they said climate change will kill us. So I know there's some meaning to 1028. Yeah, we have 1,028 days left. The Dolly, the ship, hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge at 1:28. The movie was released on 12/8. So there's quite a lot with this 10/28, 12/8 we could point to. We have 1,028 days left. So make of that what you will. 10/28 Black Ops 6. So what the commenters are referring to is that when Modern Warfare 3 came out, it was on 10/6. What happened on 10/7? Middle East. So you had millions of people engaged in simulated warfare in a simulation, and then it happens the next morning. That's predictive programming. That's concurrent programming. Oh, nice one, American Fathers. 10/28, North Tower gone. All very scripted. 9/11 is just a great example of scripting. They kind of overdid it. Building 7 burns 7 hours, falls in 7 seconds. Flight 77 flies for 77 minutes, hits a 77-foot tall building. It's kind of redonkulous. But it's because it's a script. It's code. These numbers tell a story. These numbers tell a pretty good story. It's pretty clear. November the 3rd, the day that the One World Trade Tower was erected. That's another one I've been looking at very closely. But November the 5th, referenced in Batman. And then you have the Penguin movie, the series, which is out right now. And in that series, they have a reference, and they show the flood again. So it's been brought back into awareness. So somebody said Dolly the sheep. Was she born on 10/28? Didn't Dolly have braces? Musk was born on 6/28, and the 628th minute is 10/28. Yeah, the reason why these dates and these times are so significant is that this cult that runs the world controls time, controls history, controls space. There's nothing insignificant. 9/11 is a New Year's date. Tominoid 3 says 7, 7, 93, and 11, all Crowley numbers. Yeah, that's true. Was it AA, American Airlines, and AA is one of Crowley's orders? Like the Silver Star. All right, let's see what else we have here. Went down a slight rabbit trail. So tonight's live stream title, Junk in Outer Space, Cyberspace, and Inner Space, because NASA's job, the space program's job, really the mass media at large's job, is to control your inner space. But the space program, its purpose, and this is why I think they fake all this stuff, is to give us a complete cosmography that they design. And if they can control your worldview, they're controlling your mind, they're controlling your inner space. So outer space is really a metaphor for inner space. And as they conquer outer space, it means that they're going deeper into our minds. So when they have people in the fake Mars bases, you'll know they have complete control over our minds. Let's see, the Pentagon. Construction begins September 11th, 1941, 60 years before. The event, though, it's talked about almost too much. I mean, 9/11 is great for the perspective of studying media fakery and the scale at which it can be accomplished. But I think it's also important to keep in mind that that is one psyop in a long succession of psychological operations that are all connected, and that the predictive programming for 9/11 is not anomalous. It's with every event, big and small. Fake is the rule, not the exception. There's a forest of fakery, and yet truthers find themselves running laps around one or two trees. It's like the whole forest is fake.
Tominoid says, oh no, My Third Eye says, isn't Mars in Australia or someplace? Right now, it's probably all in a simulation. I don't know why they would. I mean, I think originally, probably in Canada, Arizona. How they're going to do it, I'm not sure. I think they're going to end up sending people through Hyperloop, perhaps, if they even fake it on that scale. It might just be as cheesy as the ISS, as in a bunch of actors pretending to be in space with substandard special effects. It's embarrassing that some people are still fooled by the ISS. It just tells me they haven't looked. Like, if you believe the space station's real, you haven't looked. You're a low information believer, which is another thing to talk about. We're aiming for informed disbelief here. The masses have low info belief, generally speaking, when it comes to these events that they believe in. And their low info belief weighs less than your informed disbelief. And we've been talking about this for some time, and I've noticed, like, I started talking about how if you don't critically examine the news, like, as in, if you just passively accept it, whether you're accepting the mainstream or the alternate and the alternative version of things, if you're just passively accepting it, you're not using your mental immune system. And if you're not using your mental immune system, your critical thinking, then you're susceptible to mind viruses. So if you're susceptible to mind viruses because you're not exercising your critical thinking faculties, then you can be said to have mind aids. And the government gave you mind aids back when you were a baby, basically. You're born with mind aids. They give it to everybody. Mind war inoculation is what we're offering here. And it's what we demonstrate every single day. Most of the listeners here, you can ascertain by the comments, are inoculated against mind war. They're not falling for any of it. They're not triggered. And as soon as I started talking about mind aids as a way to explain the condition of the masses right now and how it's cultivated, they don't want you to have an immune system for your mind. They want to remove it so they can curate your news for you. They want you to fear mind viruses. Like, oh, I don't want to be exposed to these ideas I might catch. The person who says that doesn't give themselves any credit for having any ability to censor or filter their own thoughts. Like, oh, I better have this censored. I don't want to accidentally go to the wrong YouTube channel and turn into a flat earther. Like, it doesn't work that way unless you don't have a mental immune system. Well, shortly after I talked about this, I heard about this on a Daily Beast podcast. This new group came out called the Mental Immunity Project. And what they say here isn't controversial. It's actually similar to what I talk about quite often. But the Mental Immunity Project is a way of encouraging media literacy so people don't fall for stuff like a bunch of dummies. But the problem that they run into is that they only see mind viruses as misinformation as defined from the mainstream perspective. So they're not auto-hoaxers. But it says, we learned about germs and how to control their spread. If we could solve today's infodemics in the same way, why not afford our minds the same protection we afford our bodies? What if we helped everyone boost their immunity to viral misinformation? And what they are missing here is that the MSM worldview, the mainstream programming, is designed for people with no mental immune systems. It's not in their best interest to actually advance this agenda. But they're right. Mental immune disorders. Critical thinking is a fine thing, but healthy mental immune systems strike a balance. Uncritical thinking can let in lots of bad ideas, and hypercritical thinking can also screen out good ones. There's a Goldilocks zone where critical thinking is enough, but not too critical. And this is how they fix it. You got to be a critical thinker, but don't be an auto-hoaxer. Don't believe the right wing or the alt news, but believe the mainstream stuff. So they can't go full-on immunity. They have to be selective about it. Infectious ideas spread in communities. So you got to quarantine against these communities, obviously. Communities that coalesce around shared beliefs and identities become immune compromised.
they've said everything here but mind aids. And I think they stole this whole concept to co-opt it from what we're doing here, because I've been saying for some time that listeners of infinite plane radio are mind war inoculated. Yeah, Angst G, they stole it from us, is what I'm saying. They hijacked it. And the Department of Homeland Security, they hijacked CSA. We came up with something called CSA, like hearsay. Oh, I saw it on TV, so it happened. No, that's CSA. It's catchy. That's why we came up with it. Same with mind aids. It should go viral, but it should lead to us. It should lead to auto-hoaxology, media skepticism. But they hijacked it. So here we have, if you see something, say something. The DHS has something called CSA Day. And it's every September. Be on the lookout for terrorists and call the Department of Homeland Security who fabricate terrorism and tell them what you saw. But this CSA Day came out as a hashtag campaign right after we started throwing around the term CSA. But yes, they definitely have an agenda here of making the public perceive information as a form of virus. And they want that fear. And it is my belief that they use 2020 to condition us to accept the necessity eventually of quarantining the internet to purify our shared cyberspace commons. So we're going to have the equivalent of a pandemic lockdown for the internet at the request of the public because of disease X. Plain decoded says, call them and ask why they stole it. It's not the first example. Like, I happen to think that Elon Musk saying that his space fakery looks like CGI, that's a deliberate tactic that they're agreeing with us. One of our main talking points is, this looks like CGI. This is obviously CGI. And then Musk comes out and says, yeah, it does look like CGI. So he agrees with us. But then he follows it with, but it's not. So now saying it looks like CGI no longer challenges it, because even the Pope of Mars to be, Elon Musk himself, agrees with you. So they're playing very sophisticated mind games, sophistry. It's all manipulation. Outer space, inner space, mind control. You can laugh at Musk. You can think he's a clown. You can think he's a troll. But if you look at his position on the world stage, I'm not saying he's some kind of mastermind or villain, but I am saying that his role is highly significant in the big mind control scheme of things. The whole keeping us all on the same page and then also leading us into something. There is an agenda here, and he's pulling the thing right. And his purpose, I think, is to be a fall guy for free speech. American Father says, Instagram has a new false information reporting option. People can report more. Yeah, that's being done on purpose. As in, I think they are flooding social media with false information on purpose so the public has an outcry against it, so they get sick of it. I mean, even I'm sick of it. I'm sick of going through Twitter and I'm like, okay, fake, fake, fake. And it's all coming from truthers. Just nothing but fakery. Or misrepresenting things, or big channels pushing chemtrail phobia. Still, in 2024, what are they spraying? It's like you've been asking that question for 20 years. Answer your own question. But I'm seeing these being promoted, and it's because they are flooding the zone. It's the fog of Psywar. They're diluting the truth. They're diluting the truth, and they're tainting it. So you have some people who are exponents for some idea that might be valid, but then their next breath is they're saying something repugnant, which drives people away by design. That's why I'm saying that we have to keep this free of politics, of identity politics, and religion. Because religion is toxic. Politics is toxic. And we're trying to build a cohesive group of media skeptics. And our focus here is, it's epistemology. It's philosophy. It's worldview. It's far beyond politics. Left and right, it's a big, you know what George Bernard Shaw said, it's a It's a pigsty. He said, never wrestle with a pig because you both get muddy and the pig likes it. And it's true. American Father says, I changed some of my views from joining this channel. It helps a lot. Well, at a minimum, if you remove any kind of fear that's not based on a rational parsing of the facts, if you get rid of things that you can't validate, you end up believing less and being more certain of what you do know. And that space, that buffer of suspension of judgment, prevents you from reacting immediately. You can't be rage baited. Engagement bait doesn't faze you. You can't be triggered emotionally by some news story, even if they have somebody on the screen crying. You have to be dispassionate. You know, I looked at 10/7 or shortly thereafter. I'm like, oh, look, all these fake dead kids, like obvious dummies. And at no point did I think, oh, I better not say anything. No, I'm not even reverent at all about any of their programming. I'm just completely irreverent, and I'm not trying to be contrarian, but at the same time, I'm not reactionary. I'm not triggerable by the MK Ultra PSYOP entertainment complex. And that's what it is. It's MK Ultra. Mind Control Ultra is based on trauma-induced mind control, and they traumatize people with their PSYOPs and people or their paranoid theories, whether it's climate change or chemtrails or 5G towers or aliens, whatever the paranoia they give you, that makes you triggerable. Auto hoaxers aren't triggerable. Patricia Steer says, I believe less and react less. I win. It's freeing. There's a lot of research has gone into the effects of studying bad news, following bad news. And it turns out the people who believe in all this stuff, who study it and read the body counts and cry and send money to GoFundMes, they suffer from stress-related conditions. That's why I said before that you can die from chemtrail lung. Chemtrails don't have to exist, but if you believe in them enough, then you could probably get some kind of psychosomatic effect. So by becoming a skeptic and becoming less reactionary, they can't trigger you, which reduces your stress, which encourages level-headed, clear thinking. And the original skeptics, we're talking Piro and company, maintain that if you cease to believe in things you couldn't verify, because normally it turns out to be fake later anyway, you end up achieving a state of inner peace. So imagine that. You have two options here. You can go mind war and choose a side, or inner peace. And inner peace means you're not married to one side winning over the other. You're not scared of nukes. You're not scared of aliens. You're not scared of extraterrestrials. You're not scared of migrants. You're not scared of they're going to grab your guns. You're not scared of needles. There's so many things that truthers are scared of. And Patricia Steer says some people died of COVID due to belief. I think so. And I'm not saying that, I'm not on this, I don't believe it's a benevolent dictatorship. I've seen the deleterious effects of terrible, bad media. 2020 did bad. A lot of people suffered. Some people became homebound, and that had bad effects. But as far as like the next phase of it, where truthers are saying Bill Gates is going to kill us all, no, they were spreading this idea that this thing would kill you. That's paranoid. It's a fear-driven narrative, and a lot of people do believe it. And I wouldn't be surprised if a anti-vaxxer died from it out of sheer terror. You just poke an anti-vaxxer with a needle, they'll just drop dead. Just any needle. And if anybody did die of it, it's probably because of the fear spread by the truthers, ironically. Imagine that. How ironic would that be? If all of the deaths, like the suddenly died, were all attributable to misinformation. Which I don't believe. It's not that I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but I do have a point. My point is that truthers are propaganda mules. Truthers spread fear. If you believe what truthers say, you're scared of everything. And if you're scared of everything, you've been conquered. If you're scared of everything, you're essentially a cowed, conquered resident of the Matrix. You know, you're basically giving in. to the mind war. And it's all by design. I love these quotes by Frank Herbert. And I watched part 1 of Doom. I'm watching the next one. You know, everyone knows the fear is the mind killer. But one of the best quotes to come out of Frank Herbert's Dune, Messiah, and this is referring to you, not you, but the masses. They are not mad. They are trained to believe, not to know. Belief can be manipulated. Only knowledge is dangerous. And what we're seeking to do here, what we've done, is we've split off from the believers. See, truthers have already split from believers in the mainstream, but they're believers in alt belief. We're splitting from believers and alt believers. We're going into a realm where informed disbelief and knowing takes precedence over guessing or trusting some source. And this is absolutely how it works. Trained to believe. That's mind aids. They've been trained not to use their critical thinking. The governments of the world, the religions, any institution that promotes a belief-based worldview is giving you this compromised mental immune system so they can program you like a robot, so they can manipulate you. And it works. There's no doubt about this. We've been witnessing it and following it very closely. Shannon Jones says, Reverse History's presentation at AutoHoaxCon was outstanding. Oh, yeah. And he's going to be at the next one. And the next one's going to be on the 26th. So 10/26, AutoHoaxCon number 2. So let me go ahead and put that flyer on the screen. We're still open to having submissions. Open call for submissions. AutoHoaxCon number 2, October 26th, 12 to 5 p.m. Open to submissions of podcasts, videos, art, or music, and speakers who wish to present their content and engage in a Q&A session with their audience. And this is all facilitated through Zoom. And so I will be selling tickets $5 like the last one to participate in the closed Zoom session. But this time, we're going to live stream it. So even if you're not directly participating in it, you can still listen to it live and maybe decide to join in. But AutoHoaxCon number 2 will be as good as the first one. And the reason we're doing AutoHoaxCon is that we need to form a coalition of auto-hoaxers. The sooner the better. Outside the controlled left-right. We don't need any of these truther influencers trying to get ahead of this. Not that they can. They're too married to the big system. But the point of it here is this hasn't been done. It needs to be done. And the sooner we build up this group of, I think 10,000's a conservative estimate, but that's a number I'm aiming for. I think there's many more than that. As soon as we reach a critical mass, then things will get very interesting. Well, you can get tickets if you're a member of IPS, if you want to attend the Zoom conference. If you can't do that, you can just watch it live. And if you're somebody who's not a member, just go to ips.monster, and you can get the newsletter there, and you'll be notified when it goes live. All right, we've covered quite a lot. Tomorrow's Infinite Plane Saturday, and following that, we're going to do the Discord voice chat. I'm going to record IPS Deep Think Tank episode number 4. We streamed episode number 3 tonight, so if you're subscribed to the newsletter, you already got that. You just check your emails if you haven't got that yet. Okay, excellent. I'm putting a link below. Join the newsletter. And the newsletter is free, by the way. You can certainly become a paid supporter of the IPS think tank, but I don't believe in gatekeeping. So even if that means that the paywalls have to be very limited, I'm really trying to do as much as I can to get the think tank to expand. I don't want to stifle our own potential snowballing, which could really easily happen. And additionally, on the next AutoHoaxCon, we're going to be taking every one of the speakers, every one of their presentations, and we're going to upload them as separate files. we're getting a lot of really good reactions to the last one. And what I did on this first one is I did an overview of auto-hoaxology, the methodology, and why we're doing it. On this next one, I haven't decided what I'm going to focus on, but I am going to focus on one specific aspect. It might even be concurrent programming, because nothing else makes the case for the predictive programming explanation to be best understood as a form of advertising and propaganda and conditioning for future fake news events. The whole entrainment process. All right, this is Auto-Hoaxology by Symbia. I'm going to put a link to the track below. Thanks for your comments. Everyone have a great evening. Tomorrow, Infinite Planes, Saturn Day.
On the screen, does it make it real? I don't take the red pill, I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams, auto hoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind day. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading out of hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading out of hoaxology. Nothing can bother me, out of hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin', reading out of hoaxology, rejecting all the expectations of the auto-believer, to become a new creation on the raft of receivers. Standing on the sword of truth, I stop the facts of deceiver, demanding burdens for the proof from all the hacks and believers. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in the lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading auto-hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading auto-hoaxology. Nothing can bother me, auto-hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin', reading auto-hoaxology, suspending all the judgment, you won't get a reaction. Won't defend it, I won't budge until I get all the facts in. I won't argue with the bots about the next current thing, crying over the fake bodies like a bitter death clinger.